Tonight's episode of the Tuesday Night Cigar Club is brought to you by Drew Estate. Come experience the rebirth of cigars at www.drewestate.com and download the free Drew Diplomat smartphone app today to discover nearby retailers, RSVP to special events, redeem points to win exclusive Drew Estate merchandise, and much, much more.
Might be a big mistake, but I'm having too much fun to wait. Flag her down when she comes back by. That one's yours and this one's mine. Bring another round. Bring another round. Bring another round. Bring another round. Bring another round.
Here's done. Suckles!
Good evening, brothers and sisters of the Leaf. Coming to you live once again from the corner of No Hope, it's the Tuesday Night Cigar Club podcast. Tonight the boys talk with filmmaker Skye Borgman about her wildly successful documentary, Abducted In Plain Sight, while they smoke the Punch Diablo cigar paired with the Maudite Belgian strong ale from Unibroue. Sounds like we're in store for an episode quite unlike any other, folks, so sit back, light 'em up, and enjoy the show.
So my in-laws got us this huge 4-in-1 old-timey stereo for Christmas. Like a record player, CD, cassette.
Oh, yeah.
Radio, one of those big things. And I wasn't really a fan. I'm not a big vinyl guy, and it's a big piece of stuff.
Is it like one of those retro ones that Target put out or something like that?
It's big made of wood. It's nice.
Oh, you mean a legit one?
Yeah, it's nice, but it's big, and I don't play records, and I don't. All my cassettes are boxed up, so I wasn't really a big fan initially. But the wife was demanding that I unbox it and set it up, so I did. And now for the last 2 weeks, every morning when I wake up, I turn on the radio and I listen to 91.3 Simply Beautiful all day long.
What is
it's like
that?
I'm living in a dentist's office.
Oh.
It's like easy listening music.
Ugh.
I'm addicted.
Okay.
Between this, I was telling Yax my newfound love of artisanal bar soaps.
Oh, my God.
Oh, dude. I spent all day Saturday just going, looking for new bar soaps. I just don't have a clue who I am anymore.
I don't either.
I feel better getting that off my chest to you boys, though. In confidence. Our listeners obviously got a reputation to keep up as a beer-chugging, renegade badass. I don't want to blow that, so let's keep that little nugget to yourselves about the bar soaps and the easy listening music.
Well, put this on your bad ass. We're recording right now.
What's that?
Yeah, no, we're live.
Oh, you're recording?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, at least I'll mention this when our special guest comes on the air, because I want her to still think I'm cool, so we can just bypass that.
Yeah, already. She's already here.
She is. She is. Well, I'm sorry, you assholes just haven't lived until you've heard Anne Murray do her version of Danny's song. Oh my God.
What the fuck, man?
What if I told you that Simply Beautiful 91.3 plays a cover version, Anne Murray doing Slayer's South of Heaven?
I'd say you're a liar. And I've never been more disappointed in you.
I don't know. That kind of sounds cool.
Well, next time you're over at the house, I'll look at the look of disappointment on your face when I hide all my artisanal bar soaps. Take that. You can't use them. What can I say? I like easy listening, soft music. I like fancy soap. We're doing a documentary of all things tonight. I'm into class these days, fellas. It's my new thing.
Is that what it is?
I'm into class. Welcome everybody to the Tuesday Night Cigar Club, episode 88. God, as long as we've been doing this, we should have. Seems
dead by now?
Seems like we should have been done more than 88 of these things. Yeah, I'm changing, guys. I feel it every day.
All right. Yeah.
I'm evolving into a better Cade.
As you should. As you should.
Well, different Cade.
As you should.
Well, a weaker, more questioning of everything, and just kind of lost Cade.
I'm out of here.
Boy, I went from better
I
to
don't know who you are.
that anymore. We have a very special show for you tonight, boys and gals.
I'm ready for it.
Are you?
Yes.
You ready for this one?
Yes. I've
Okay.
been thinking about this for like 6-7 hours.
You never get excited about this, so I'll take that as a good sign.
Oh, it was mainly like technical, like how we're
Trying to figure out how to do all the technical stuff.
No. I'm cool. I've got a whole bunch of hard hitting questions.
Okay, all right. Well, let's get right down to brass tacks here. As most of you probably know, and to our new listeners, every episode we pair a film carefully with a cigar and a craft beer. I was wisely detoured from the direction I was going with tonight's pairing. I'll save that till the end of the show and see how that goes over. So tonight I have paired tonight's movie with the Punch Diablo.
That fits.
It's Spanish for devil. And tonight's movie is about the devil's business.
Apparently so.
By General Cigar Company. It is 6 1/8 in length and a 50 ring gauge. They refer to this size as the scamp.
The Scamp?
The
I've never
scamp.
heard of that Vitola.
I know this is the only one that's ever been called that. Yeah, they have really weird names for their sizes. It's
that's
the
cool.
scamp. It is an Ecuadorian Sumatra Oscuro wrapper with a Connecticut broadleaf binder. Filler is Honduran and Nicaraguan. I'll save price point to a little bit later. This is the new face of Punch.
I want to take my glasses off because I just old man looked around it. I was like, ugh.
This is a new look for them. They've had the same look for years.
I was about to say, new level.
They do some different stuff, but they're trying to rebrand a little bit with some new product, presentation wise. And it's also the first Punch cigar made outside of their Honduran factory. It's manufactured by guess who? Who makes everybody cigars these days?
AJ Fernandez.
Correct. But this is a dark, oily, veiny bastard.
It's weird because it feels oily, but it doesn't look oily. It's very rustic. I like it.
It feels very oily, but you're right. It looks dry and rough. Yeah. We're going to kind of breeze a little more through the... that's all I'm going to tell you about the cigar. You're on your own. If you want to learn more about it, go to your local tobacconist, and he can tell you all you want. I want to get right to the good stuff tonight.
Yeah, but they need to check out that cold draw because it's a little bit of chocolate and sweet raisins.
You getting some sweet raisins on there?
Some sweet raisins.
Sweet. I'll give you that. You getting sweet raisins, Yak Boy?
Hay.
Hay.
A lot of hay.
No, I mean,
Oh.
are you getting... Oh.
Oh.
No.
Actual hay.
Actual hay.
Actual hay and sweet raisins and a little bit of chocolate. I'll give you the sweetness. While we're lighting up, why don't you tell us about tonight's beer?
It's beer.
And moving on. Tonight's film...
No.
Oh, sorry.
We are back with
That joke never gets old.
It does not get old. Love it.
Skye's been here for 10 minutes. It's old. It's old.
Oh man.
89 times.
From our wonderful brewers in Chambly, Quebec.
I love these guys.
Unibroue.
I love these guys. I'm on record. It's my favorite brewery in the world.
They do some interesting stuff.
They make fantastic beers, and this will be our fourth pairing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've done the
Don
Don
de-
de Doux,
Don de
de
Doux.
Doux.
the La Fin du Monde,
Le Fin du Monde.
and La Tout Le Monde.
La Tout Le Monde.
La
Tout le monde.
La Tout le monde.
The Megadeth beer.
That is the Megadeth beer. What is this one called?
This is Maudite.
The quasi-dead beer.
Which is
Maudite?
Maudite.
Maudite?
Maudite.
Maudite. Oh, that's a good beer. I wish I had some beer.
Oh, see, I told you.
I know. I didn't know which one you were drinking.
What are you drinking up there? Kahlua and milk?
Oh, you. That's nasty. It's a little bit of vodka, grapefruit.
Okay. I had to.
I know. It's just too good, right?
Tell us what you know.
It is in the style of a Belgian double. The bottle carries on it the logo of a group of gentlemen flying in a canoe with the devil, which is based on a legend of a group of lumberjacks that struck a deal with the devil to fly home in their canoes, guided by Satan himself, to make it home in time for Christmas.
That seems ass backwards.
Yeah, let's make a deal with the devil to celebrate our Lord Jesus Christ.
I lived in Canada for a few years, so they're different.
A little bit.
I love
Just
those.
a little bit. I'm sure there's more to the story, but they didn't give it, and I'm not sure I wanted to ask.
That's a lot of lumberjacks in that canoe.
It's
Are you sure it's a canoe?
a canoe.
Might be a schooner.
Doesn't have a sail.
That's why they needed to ask the devil for help.
Could be. But it is a powerful drink. It's 8% ABV and only about 22 IBUs. So
Yeah, no real
not
bitterness.
much bitterness.
I'll-
They do describe it as having a mild hop bitterness, but without lingering hop flavors.
Boy, it certainly has a sharp bite on the front end.
Yes.
I have a feeling this is going to be one of those Unibroues like the Don de Do, where the first few I was trying to figure it out, and by the last one I just was in love with it.
Could be.
Possibly.
Could be.
It's far too early to tell. You like it, Tut? Have you even had a sip yet? You're over there.
All hell's breaking loose, man.
Squirt him with a fire extinguisher, would you?
I'm giving her all she's got, Captain. I don't have time to drink your Canadian beer.
I'll come back to you on the beer. How's that? All right. Well, I'll tell you what. You boys have a few sips. Light up your cigars. I'm going to introduce tonight's film. Abducted in Plain Sight. Now available for streaming on Netflix. Now trending as of last night on Netflix.
That is right.
Which I believe means a shitload of people are watching it.
Yep.
I'm guessing.
Yes.
Directed and shot by my good friend Skye Borgman. I first met Skye around 10 years ago, give or take, when I hired her based on only her reel and a phone interview to fly to Texas to be my cinematographer on a messed up little horror film I was about to shoot called Underbelly. I literally brought her on board a week before production, and she impressed me from the minute she stepped foot on set. From the minute she stepped foot in Texas, she impressed me. She has an equal eye for both composition and art for art's sake. She has a very uncanny talent for finding a way for both of those to work together in harmony. And she's everything a director could ask for in a collaborator, in that she does what you tell her, but she does it better than you could ever picture it in your own brain box. I left that 10-day shoot with nothing left in the tank, but I did have a cemented appreciation for Skye's talent and character that has lasted the test of time. I feel like I should be talking at like an award ceremony or something.
I know we need some really appropriate music happening.
I was about to say, I wish I had a soundboard. I could get the
Oh, yeah, I know.
The Duplass brothers edited my first horror film, and Skye shot my second horror film. So I should probably make another one someday, so somebody else can jumpstart their Hollywood careers to stardom. Tut, your day's coming, buddy.
woohoo 73, and I'll finally do a good film.
Don't forget me when you get to the top.
What's your name?
So, boys, having said all that, please join me in welcoming the one, the only Skye Borgman to the Tuesday Night Cigar Club.
There's Skye.
Welcome, Skye.
Oh, well, thank you. This is awesome. I have to say that working with you has lived on with me forever.
Yeah.
That is very appropriate.
That is
That
what
is
we
so
always seem to
appropriate.
hear.
You might want to elaborate just for just a little bit, maybe.
We had a great time. It was. I have to say, it was one of the best experiences shooting a film I've ever had. We had a lot of fun. There was a lot of crazy stuff that we did, and it was just always such an incredible collaboration and working together. When are we going to do it again? I'm ready. Let's do it again.
I will let you know as soon as I know. But it was fun. We had a lot of fun, and we've just kind of kept in touch over the years. And I'm just over the moon happy for you and the success that this film has got to this point. Skye, let's start off. I mentioned that earlier that I'm into class now. It's my new thing. But for our viewers, and okay, maybe for me, could you explain what is a documentary? No, I'm joking.
I was about to say, is that the way? Oh my god!
Just kidding.
Do I need to start writing your questions?
That's my go-to question. This is good. This is good. Real quick, give our audience just a quick rundown of what got you to this film. I know USC Film School. And then
Right.
just a real variety of projects, but what got you here?
Well, it's funny. I'm a director of photography by trade. I mean, it's what I do. It's how I make my living. It's what I love, and I've been doing it for almost 20 years now professionally. And when this story sort of came up. It was a friend of mine, Stephanie Toby, who had found the story. I found the book that the Brobergs wrote, and she brought it to me. And I'd been pretty regularly working as a DP, and this was one that I thought, this would be great to sort of climb on board and stick with it for a number of years, because documentaries, they just take a lot of time. And I'd done another documentary before called Junk Dreams, which was a really personal documentary about me and my dad and my Uncle Charlie sailing up to Alaska on a Chinese junk boat. And that was 7 years of my life. And this one so far has been 5 years. So I kind of came into it knowing that it was going to take a long time. And I knew from my first doc that I needed to find another topic that I was passionate about enough to spend that much time on it. And when this one came along, it was the first one in a long time that's like the right choice for me.
And I can certainly see why. Man, okay, well, we're going to get right into the meat and potatoes of this thing. For those of you who regularly tune in or watch us on YouTube, and to the new folks, maybe join us for the first time, we do a pretty deep dive into our films. I was actually going to shake it up a little bit when we first started talking about doing this film. And I was like, no, you know what? I think the best way to do it is just like we always do it. Just kind of go through it, plod through it. And having Skye here as kind of, it's kind of a director's commentary where you can ask an interactive director's commentary, if you will.
Yeah, thank you for being that open, Skye. That's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what we'll do is we'll go through, and for once, when we're watching Bikini Car Wash, if we've got a question, we don't have a resource up there to help us, and so this should be fun. This should be interesting. I could tell before we start, I could tell by the expression on your face you like the initial light up on the stogie.
Yeah, I really do. It's got a nice little spice to it. It's just got a nice little toothiness to it that I really, really appreciate.
It's got some real nice spice through the nose, and I'm getting a little bit of mint on the draw. Did you get a little mint?
I'm not sure that's what I'm tasting, but there is something that's a little bit mint-like in terms of it's got that.
It's like a thin mint cookie.
It's
like
got
a
like
Girl Scout cookie.
that clean
I was
crispness
thinking York
in the
peppermint
bag.
patty.
No, not a York peppermint patty, like a thin mint cookie. No,
definitely not a York.
Andes?
Maybe an Andes, a little bit.
A little bit of an Andes, yeah.
Andes.
Yeah, you're right.
There you go, an
Yeah.
Andes mint. That's why there's three of us.
Yeah.
Boy,
Good job.
that's a nice flavor to have in a cigar. Yeah, and
FDA is going to be like mint, huh?
Andes mints, eh?
Ah, damn it.
And it's a strong, it's a cigar with some force to it, but the beer is too. Man, beer is just keep going that word. It's got some bite.
It does.
But it's got a little bit of floral and some stuff going on in the back end too.
It's more like I like it because of the raisin sweetness in the beginning. This has that sort of a dried fruit, very just a hint of it for me, anyways, on the flavor. But
okay. You're a fan, Skye. Did you ever get dried fruit from your Maudites?
I think it's kind of a nice sweet beer. It's really easy to drink. But they sneak up on you. I've certainly had that experience a couple of times where, where they're so easy to drink. They don't feel like they pack a wallop, but after 2, you're really feeling it.
You know, it's funny. We shot for 10 days in one of the hottest summers on record in Texas when we shot my little film, and you know, we tend to crack a few after a long day on set. Yeah, believe it or not.
No.
I never saw Skye really. Boy, she always had a level head.
I'm a very serious filmmaker.
Yeah.
I don't. Is that true? Really?
Yeah, I never really. I don't. I just remember you always just being very fun, and we had a great time. But just you always kind of focused on what you were here to do.
I was about to say, don't feel bad, Skye. There's a reason why you're trending on Netflix, and we're here.
Pipe down, you. I just can't figure out Duplass Brothers, Skye. Where did it all go? Hold on a second.
Where did it go awry? I mean, what happened?
All right, shall we dive into the film?
Yes, because this is
Please.
one messed up film.
This is one very messed up film.
And I will say that I do, because there's some controversy around how Netflix is rating their movies. Like, you know, this movie is being seen by thousands of people, and then when you ask people, no one's heard of it. But then I made just like a simple comment on my Facebook page about this doc, and I had like 3 people just within 5 minutes talking about it. So if my friends are watching it, which I don't think my friends are doc people, so
your friends are not documentary people.
They're actually, there's people watching. There's a reason why it's trending.
Agreed. And I want to talk at the very end a little bit about Netflix as a streaming partner, but let's get into this bad boy. I'm ready to talk.
Okay.
Well, Skye, you start at the film with actual recorded audio of the film's central character, Robert B. I'm going to call him B since the other dad's Bob. I'm just going to go with B. Berchtold, describing when he first discovered this young girl, Jan Broberg, I believe she was 10 when they first met.
Yeah.
And how he knew immediately it was the little girl he had been searching for his whole life. This audio is played over archival footage of young Jan marching in a parade, and just this intro alone is bone-chilling enough. Just this voiceover, look, the start of a horror film. If you didn't have a clue of what was going to come next.
So it's at this point, this is one of the few times where my wife and I actually have watched one of our podcast movies.
I told Skye too.
together.
It's the first time I've gotten my wife to watch one of our movies.
And so I was thinking on like documentary. Okay, it's probably serial killer. Jenny loves that. She loves like all the serial killer type stuff. And then we started watching this, and our eyes were just kind of like this big. We just kind of looked at it. I was like, oh my God, this is about a pedophile.
What an intro.
Kids?
What's that?
Do you have kids?
No.
No, I have 2 daughters.
I know you do.
But I shipped them away after watching this film.
It's the same. It's the same for me. We have 2 cats.
Did you ship them away after watching this film? I would, just to be safe.
You're not around them. You're not allowed to be there.
But it is just such an effective. You put that in the beginning of any horror film, and it
really was horror.
It sends a chill up your spine, and I'm not using that superfluously. It was really creepy. Let me ask you this: throughout the film, you had this gift of old 8mm footage. Could you have told the story effectively without that archival footage? Because it just adds so much texture and realness to what's going on. Could you imagine doing it without it?
Well, it's really interesting because we had kind of a handful of actual archival footage from the Brobergs, and it was wonderful and beautiful. It wasn't enough that was going to be able to sort of get us everything we needed to cover up just holes that we had in the story where we didn't really have anything to go to. So we shot recreations for it, and I really wanted to be able to kind of transport people back in time to the 1970s, because I think it's interesting. I've been saying, it's important to get people back to the 70s because it's critical to kind of think about the context of where this film happened and where the story not the film happened, but where the story happened.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though it is important, but I actually feel like the same stuff happens today. Like, it's not really that different. Like,
no,
just happened in the 70s doesn't mean it can't happen today.
No, it is happening today, but I think that the interesting thing is that there's two things. One is the time period, because you don't have cell phones, you don't have a connection to the rest of the world, so you are really, and plus your geography. Yeah, up, I grew up, in Deep East Texas, which was cut off from the rest of the world for lack of better purpose in the 1990s, before internet got in there. So there really wasn't a way to kind of wisen up, or there's a reason why I could kind of understand the naivety of this family, because they were just so remotely located.
Right.
Yeah, I honestly think if you didn't have that footage, you did so well with the recreations that you could have filled those gaps, just as well. I thought it was great that you had it, but man, having that stuff just adds such
I like the mixture of it.
I like the mixture, the going back and forth. I really thought you did a great job of matching your recreated footage with the original stuff.
Well, it's interesting because I shot all the recreations on actual 8mm film. Like, I didn't shoot it on HD and drag it behind a truck and
I knew you did because when we first met, your reel all your reel for the most part was film.
That's true. Yeah. It's not anymore, unfortunately, because
Sure.
it's been 10 years and nobody's shooting on film anymore for budgetary reasons. But for me, really shooting these recreations and kind of going back and trying to give them this home movie feel, because I always, when I'm watching docs and they have recreations, I'm cringing most of the time. Like, I'm really aware and cognizant of how the recreations kind of either pull me into a story or take me out of a story. And for the most part, I feel like sometimes recreations can be really cheesy, and I really didn't want mine to feel that way. And I knew that if I was going to shoot them with an HD camera, that I would get just too professional. It would be I'd be composing too well and exposing too well and doing everything too well, and so I just threw it all away.
It worked so well.
It would be just visually jarring, next to the actual stuff, and you're absolutely right. I mean, it flows very organically. Well, we then get to know the Broberg family, and by all accounts, from the parents to Bob and Marianne to Jan and her two sisters, they had a damn near perfect home life. At this point, even her folks, Bob and Marianne, seemed normal beyond belief when we're getting introduced to them. The kids felt loved. They all say they were secure. Jan says something that caught my ear. We were listened to, which I don't believe was the norm back in '72. I think Dad came home, wanted his dinner. Mom was in the kitchen.
Drunk dad.
They seemed to we've had that drunk dad on a million movies here. That wasn't the case. They all say that wasn't the case. I guess having read the book, which got you here, soon after this, things go quickly off the grid into some crazy places. Were the big time revelations we're about to get into here, were you aware of all of them? Not having read the book, I don't know if they're in there, but I mean, was there anything when they started to go into this stuff that just caught you off guard, or was it all pretty? Was it in there? Was it in the book or in your research?
It wasn't in the book.
Okay.
Not everything was in the book. I discovered some things in the research, and I don't know how much to divulge here, because I think we will go into it. So
you can wait till we get to that moment if you want, because I'll probably just ask you. Yeah, let's wait. We'll wait. Good call. I just wondered if. Let me know as we're going. How about we put it this way? If you had any knock you on your ass moments while you're interviewing these people, where whatever came out of their mouths just completely blew you away, let me know.
Yeah, we'll get to it when we get to the car, because it wasn't in the interview. It was before that, but I've got something really interesting to say about that, about dismissing things that you shouldn't.
Okay. So soon after this intro, we're told the Birchtold family moves into town, and through the church, they become almost immediate best friends with the Brobergs. It seems like a perfect fit on paper. They all have kids the same age. Bob and Robert, or B as we're calling him, were both local business owners, so they'd talk shop, got along really well. But both Broberg parents say that even in these early memories of the family's relationship, Jan's mother especially says they were uncomfortable with how close B seemed to be getting with Jan. Again, she's 10 years old at this point. But still, it's the 70s. We'll get to that and what that means pretty quickly here. So one day after school, B comes by and he really wants to take Jan horseback riding. And, she's kind of hesitant. It's a school night. She's got her order of things to do, get dinner ready and all this, but he really talks her into it. So they head off and they don't come back. They don't return that night. Friday goes by and the parents still don't call anybody as to not upset B's wife, Gail. This is now over 24 hours that their daughter's been missing with B, and they don't want to upset Gail. But then that was Thursday night. They disappeared. On Saturday, Marianne calls the FBI. But when they simply ask her to call a regional office there in Idaho, she decides it's not worth getting people, quote, worked up over nothing. So she doesn't follow up until 5 days have now gone by. Now, like I said, it's the 70s, so there isn't, like you said, Tut, you kind of alluded to this. There's not a story on the internet every day about a kid disappearing and getting raped and left dead in the woods. There's not, you can't look at your phone and not see that now, or watch the news and not. That wasn't a.
That stuff happened in New York City. In our,
but
in
even
our neck
then,
of the woods, it was just kids.
But even then, it didn't.
Kids.
But even then, it didn't happen every day in New York City.
Right.
Like, this is such a. I can understand from this at this time why their brains wouldn't even fathom that. And that, I mean, granted, that doesn't.
Well, it doesn't. For me, it doesn't mean that they.
It doesn't.
Okay. For me, it doesn't mean that. That they should be worried that B has kidnapped their kid. I do think that they should have been worried that something happened.
Like
to
maybe
both
they'd
of
get in
them.
their car and retrace the tracks. Let me ask you this, Scott. This is kind of where I'm going here. As a documentarian, did you press them at all on these huge lapses of judgment? Why didn't you go retrace their steps to the horse thing? Why didn't you, try to find if they, had a car accident or if they had? I am assuming they just left it to the police to do all this themselves.
It was the 70s. Maybe devil worshippers got them.
Possibly.
Right.
But I imagine there'd be a delicate balance between you want to maintain a level of them being comfortable with you to where you can continue and go through their entire story, but did you have to pull back a little bit when did you ever want to confront them on this stuff, but you're like, you know what, that's not going to get me where we need to go?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't feel like I ever really had to pull back. I did talk to them. I did push them pretty substantially on telling these stories, and really kind of reaching back into the recesses of their memories. And what came out, I was like, why did it happen? And there's part of it being 45 years ago, so memory is what memory is. But they had certainly, they did end up calling the police and said, well, have there been any car accidents? And they had said, no, there have been no car accidents. So they did do a little bit, but they never said anything like, my daughter is missing and we're wondering where she is. They had just sort of created these things in their minds where they were like, they could have gotten in an accident, should we call and ask about that? Or could these various different things happen? And so they'd never really followed through. And it was always really interesting because I think in talking with the Brobergs, pushing them, like, they didn't mind that. They really want the story to be out there. They want to tell the truth as much as possible, because I think there's part of them that feels like maybe they haven't told the truth as much as they could, and so now is their opportunity. Not that they haven't told the truth, but that they've left certain things out to protect themselves. And with this, with pushing them, they said it just didn't really feel like there was anything really wrong, because he was such a good friend that it just didn't seem like he would ever hurt Jan. And so he had not given them any reason to push further. And that's where I think you can really tell that the trouble first begins.
Yeah, no, I agree. And when you put it that way, it's kind of, if there was that intimacy, that friendship there, I mean, it'd be like, I've known Cody since high school. It'd be like, if you went on, granted, 5 days. But still, it would never cross my mind. It would cross my mind something bad happened, but it would never cross my.
That's the thing.
It would never cross my mind that you would be doing something nefarious. Well, the FBI finally gets involved, but their friends, their neighbors, the church, and even Jan's parents themselves seem to all give B a pass, even at this point. Here's a question that I had. And I'm glad you did it the way you did. Let me preface this with, I think you made the right call. Did you ever think about digging into the Mormons, to the Church of Latter-day Saints, and that kind of, they met him through the church. It was very briefly kind of alluded to that, the church had some history with him and his problems. And I think going that angle, one, I think you've got a tight running time at 90 minutes. And you're keeping the focus on the real bad guy. And I think if you had diverted into this kind of examination of the way the church operates and all that, I think it would be taking focus away from B, where it doesn't need to leave B. And I didn't think it was necessary. But did you consider it?
Yeah. Like every day when we were editing, it was always wanting to look at this further, and it's exactly what you're talking about, because every day I was like, not every day, but when we get to this, I'm like, let's try to dig into this a little bit deeper. And when we would do that, it was this rabbit hole. It was just this whole kind of spiraling down another path, and it was fascinating and completely perplexing and interesting, but it was such a departure from this family.
And the story, I think, because, you could do that in a million different points. You could have gone off on B's childhood at this weird place that he was raised, and that could have taken you down a whole nother wormhole. Like you said, you're so engrossed in the story, you want to learn every little angle of this. But at the end of the day, I think you did it right. It's all about this one guy. From a storytelling, what got me captivated, I think I would have gotten the more. And a lot of documentaries do that for me. They veer off into too many.
But at the same time, I think that's something that is an interesting question to people, because that's one of the things that my wife wants to know. She was like, do you think
what role did the LDS faith play?
Yeah, do you think that the LDS, because this is going to be a running theme about them taking or being inactive in reaching out to people, did LDS have a role in that inaction? Yeah,
I absolutely think that. I think it's beyond that. Even it's not only did they have a role in the inaction, but I also feel like they had a role in kind of opening the door, right? Because So Berchtold is a member of the LDS Church, and so because of that, he kind of automatically gets the stamp of approval. He's a good guy. He's part of the church. He's part of a community, so you can trust him without any further question.
Right.
And I don't think that's LDS specific. I think
that's church culture.
Yeah, it's church culture. It's also patriarchal institutions, NFL football. If you go even further than this, you find this across the board when we're thinking about these high profile sexual abuse cases. So absolutely, I think that the LDS faith kind of opened the door. And in the 70s especially, there weren't the background checks that are happening now.
Right.
There weren't, if somebody's getting put in charge of youth groups or taking people out on these trips, I think always, I don't know, I don't go to church, I'm not religious, but my understanding is that there are background checks and very, very detailed background checks.
Yeah, but back then...
Nothing. There was nothing.
Yeah, and you didn't question that. There weren't so many stories. Like, now it's like every time that there's a story that comes out about a church
A priest.
A priest molesting. Let's just go ahead and throw it out there. Now we almost don't bat an eye because those stories come out so often. But in the 70s, growing up, those stories weren't there.
Yeah,
nobody talked about that.
They were there.
They were there, but nobody talked about it.
Sure. Well, during this, the FBI is learning during this time that B has had an infatuation with young girls before. But this, to your point, this is also new to them. The lead FBI agent on the case, he'd never heard of the word pedophile before. Mm-hmm. That's a great little kind of throwaway comedic little line in there. Like, I'm sure it was in the dictionary, but I mean, he'd never even heard the term pedophile
just knew
before.
stranger danger.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. Which is odd because that's my wife's nickname.
That's what you call your wife.
Oh, really?
Well, we actually met on Facebook, and she Facebook stalked me, sent me a unsolicited private message, and then that was my first words to her: stranger danger.
And then she gave you some of your allergy medicine.
She gave me some allergy pills, and we got married.
Okay. Well, so weeks go by with B taking.
Oh, wait a minute! I'm sorry. I got one more thing. I don't know whether it's hard for me because we work in fiction. We don't really work in documentaries, and so it's hard for me to say that I really love the character of the detective. He was a good character.
He really was,
because he was real. I mean, because he's a real person.
Yeah. Right. Well, and I also believe that he gives that he's a voice that he's dependable, right? And throughout the rest of it, you don't know who's really dependable, and that's a challenging thing. But at the same time, when we're thinking about the context of where the FBI was and stranger danger, and it was, I think, 1974. I mean, I think we're all reasonably the same age, but in 1974, I think, was the first time where a kid's picture first appeared. It was Eitan Potts on the milk carton.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
There were all these kids that were kidnapped by strangers, who had disappeared seemingly by strangers, and it was 74, which is the same year, but it wasn't this prevalent thing. And then I think it was the same year where Stockholm Syndrome really came into play, but that was in Stockholm.
Yeah.
That idea of falling in love with your captor, or of kids being abducted by people that they know, it was really, really, really a foreign concept.
That's the one thing that's really difficult with this documentary, is that, especially with younger friends of mine, is that they don't understand just how different it was.
Yeah. Well, weeks go by with B taking Jan cross country in a motorhome, and here's where things take a cinematic turn. We've had a lot of very good looking interview footage and some of the archival stuff, but here's where you, Skye, begin intercutting new footage that you've shot on 8mm to recreate portions of the story. And I think these recreations are what elevates this insane story past like a 2020 or a Dateline NBC. Like, I feel like I'm watching a film. I don't feel like I'm watching true crime TV or whatever. I mean, you're a filmmaker. Of course, it's going to pour out of you in one way, and you do it in these recreations. And I think that's why the story, beyond the subject matter, I think that's why this doc is, really grabbing people, because, like, guys like us who don't normally do documentaries, there is a cinematic presence to it.
And I can't stress enough how good your decision is to go without HD on these recreations, because there's no jarring at all when you're watching them. When you're going in between archival footage and recreated footage, there's no like, oh, this is obviously
it's seamless.
It's
absolutely seamless. I got to give you a quick shout out here, Skye.
Okay.
I'm Facebook friendly with an Australian film producer. His name's Ant Timpson. He's produced some of our favorite flicks we featured here on the podcast. He produced Turbo Kid and Deathgasm.
Yeah.
And he actually posted a post on Facebook about Skye's film, Abducted in Plain Sight, and he specifically mentioned just how well the original content that Skye shot added, one, just the quality of it. He could tell it was shot on 8mm, and what depth it gave to the film. And, that's from a guy over in Australia, worlds. I mean, it's just like you've said, friends, that you normally don't share anything with. I mean, that just shows you how far the film has spread. And I think these little touches are why it has it has spread. Any schlub with an HD camera could interview these people, and it would be fucking nuts. But every day on TV, there's Jerry Springer with these kind of stories. That's nuts. It's not.
Well, Skye, I just want to know how you got Jeremy Piven to come on board and drop all that weight for your recreations. It was such a good kit.
You thought B looked like Jeremy Piven?
I did.
That's so funny. Yeah, he was great to work with. Jeremy was great.
I'm gonna actually get to your cast a little bit later. I want to talk about them because that wasn't easy what they had to do. But we'll get to that here in a minute.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna go to the cigar, but let me get through this first.
No. Yeah.
Keep your cigar thoughts in the back of your head. Well, we now learn that B's plan is far more intricate than just kidnapping Jan. He's been planning this for a while. Yeah, brace yourself. He's not only previously developed a flirtatious, bordering on sexual relationship with Jan's mother, but he somehow talked fairly easily, from what we hear, Jan's father, Bob, into giving him a hand job when B expresses frustration with his sex life at home during a drive out in the country. Now that's friendship.
Yeah.
That is friendship.
You boys could learn something.
No.
We learned nothing.
Feeling a little backed up, Cody? Huh?
No.
Man, we've had like you mentioned Drunk Dad earlier. We've done a lot of movies with drunk dads on the show. This is our first hand job dad.
It is.
Unless I'm forgetting something, which I probably am. The movies we do, there's probably been a hand job
you
dad.
Probably are.
Dude, yeah. Jan's dad pleasures B. He's making out with Jan's mom. He even, for some reason, this bothered me more than her kissing him. He even talks Mary Ann, Jan's mom, into bringing him sandwiches up to work. Like, he'll call her and be like,
My wife was like, "Oh, hell no.
I'm hungry. Can you bring me a sandwich up to the store?" Like, that almost was like on the hand job level with me. I was like, I don't know. This guy,
That's actually...
It was crazy. I mean, obviously, I think the hand job revelation is the one that everybody just... Did you know about the hand job prior?
So here's the thing. So it was not in the book. And there had been, like, Birchtold had kind of put out this manifesto or this book, and we had a few pages of it, and we searched everywhere and couldn't really find this book anywhere. It was never printed, but there were a few pages of it, and this is what we were talking about a little bit earlier. And
I had a feeling this was where you...
I know, right? In it, he said something about a homosexual relationship with the father. And when I read those pages, because they were very graphic and they were very just easy to dismiss, kind of. And I dismissed it and continued on doing research and doing all of this stuff. And then when we finally were able to get transcripts from the court hearing, we had, the court reporter kind of had put everything out, and we had read the transcripts, and it sort of validated that this had happened. And it was this really very teachable moment for me, because I was like, don't dismiss anything. You don't have to believe everything, but don't dismiss anything when you're doing research. And then, so I'd found out about that, and then I talked to the FBI agent, and he had confirmed that had happened. And so when we went to go interview Bob, I knew about this. Nobody had told me about it from the family. They didn't know that I knew about this. And I just really didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know if I was going to ask him about it. And we sort of got into the interview, and keep in mind that this is a 8 or 10 hour long interview. It was a long interview, and we talked about a lot of different things. And I think we gained a lot of Bob's trust, and I think he really liked telling us about his life and his story, and have us be kind of logging that story. Not about the car incident, certainly, but about his love for his family and his love for his florist business and everything that he had done. And eventually, I think he just really wanted to get this off his chest. He'd never talked about it publicly before. His family knew about it, but they had never told us about it. And I think it was a real kind of cathartic moment for him to tell us about it. He may, and even at the end, he said, I can't believe I told you girls this. And I'm not sure if he regretted it. He may have regretted it. But for me, all of the pieces of this puzzle started to really fall into place.
Oh yeah, it's a key piece.
Hey, quick question. When you're in this interview, was this something that he volunteered after like a soft questioning, or were you like, you're on the hot seat, Bob? Did this happen?
No, he volunteered it, and it was less than a soft question. It was more of a I didn't even question it. I mean, I was kind of really asking about the relationship and how he felt about Berchtold and how he was part of the family and all of that. And he really, it wasn't me probing at all. I think he was I honestly think he was really ready to talk about it in a public way. And he was pretty forthcoming.
That's how it comes across. It comes across. He's just chronologically telling you his perspective of everything that happened in the story, and that's part of it. I do one quick question. You mentioned the length of your interview with Bob. I noticed that, like with Marianne, she had some wardrobe changes. It seemed like you had maybe interviewed her over several days. Was Bob a one shot? Was he? Because he never changed clothes. Was he?
Right. We did do two. So the first round of interviews, they were all 8 or 10 hours long, and we did a day with all. I mean, we did a day with Marianne, and then the next day we did Bob on our first pass of interviews. And we had done Jan, was our first interview, and then we also did Susan, and hers wasn't as long because she was so much younger and didn't really remember.
Sure.
And then we went away and edited and got a lot more court documents and information to sort of piece things together. And about a year after that, we went back and interviewed Jan and Bob a second time. And the second time around, we had some pretty clear intentions with Marianne, just to clarify some points. But with and that was true with Bob too. But Bob. But really, there weren't that many points that we needed clarified with Bob. I mean, there were a couple, but they just didn't end up making it in the cut. And really, what he had given us in our first interview, he was so transparent and so open and so wonderful that was really all that we needed.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, real quick before I get the cigar, B knew that this groundwork he was laying, from starting a relationship with the mom to the hand job with the dad.
It was all predicated on one thing.
It was all working to where it would come out to his advantage down the line, which it sure did. It's so methodical, so sick. And here's where I wanted to kind of give you kudos to your cast who recreate these scenes, because they're doing it without the benefit of dialogue. Most of their recreations, we hear voiceover from the player, the actual participants. I mean, that's not easy to do, especially for the guy playing B. That's you are being directed by Skye to do these things, and it's all physical. I mean, it's just all a strictly physical performance. I thought your cast was really good.
They were great. I mean, it's a little bit sad in a documentary like this because nobody really talks about the cast,
right?
Because they're kind of these props, I guess. But it was such a difficult thing for Devin, who was our Berchtold, to be that character.
Yeah, that's why I want to give him a shout out, because you're right. These guys don't typically get a lot of their, like on 2020 and Dateline, they're usually in black and white and in slow motion.
And I was gonna ask you a little bit about that. Can you go into like what's the thought process in the communication, how you're trying to work with the actors during the recreation part? I mean, like, do they know the story? Are you just giving them little glimpses?
They know the story, and I and I might get some criticism for this, but I felt it was especially important to talk with Lainey Rhodes, who played our young Jan.
Oh God.
I think it's really important to talk to her about what she was doing, to not give her a different idea about what she's doing, and then we use it in a different way in the film. You know,
it'd be a lot easy. It'd be a lot easier, but not fair.
Easier. I don't know. Like fair. I don't know. I don't know if it would be fair, but I
don't think so. I don't think if you tell a little girl that, lay on the bed and I want you to picture riding a merry-go-round,
right,
and it gets stuck and you're scared, and just think about how scared you are, and then you use that expression of hers
watch it in film.
For a rape scene, like, Skye Borgman's just made an enemy for life.
Right, yeah. But I think even beyond that, like I wanted to open up a really transparent dialogue so that she and her mother too knew what the story was about, what we were doing, and how important I felt the story was to tell. And she was great. And we didn't, I don't think the recreations were that explicit. I mean, there was never much. I mean,
hold that thought. I'm going to get back to that because you and I filmed some pretty intense stuff 10 years ago, and I think you may have trumped me. It's just me, but hold that thought.
Okay.
Before we move on, you're at the halfway mark. Cody, I can't see your cigar,
Yes.
but I'm assuming we're all halfway through.
About halfway through, yeah.
I'm liking it.
Yeah, I am too. It's not there's not a lot of transition to it. It's just got that nice little that spicy leather that's kind of kicked into it. It's more mineral and more leather based.
I'm getting that.
And earth.
I'm
as
getting
well.
that Connecticut broadleaf Liga style.
Yeah. Which I was about to say. Where's
the filler? I'm sorry.
from?
The Connecticut broadleaf.
Didn't you say Honduras?
It's a Ecuadorian Sumatra Oscuro wrapper. The binder is Connecticut broadleaf. The filler is Nica and Honduras.
Okay.
But you're right. There's a little bit of that Nicaraguan earth. I'm getting chocolate. I'm still getting that Andes mint. Ever since you said that, I can't.
Chocolate has been very strong here in the middle for me.
Big time. I'm getting a real nice, rich chocolate note, and the spices died down on the nose. It comes and goes. So it's there and it's gone.
I mean,
construction's good.
Construction's good. I love the feel of this thing. It does have a little oily touch to the fingers, but when you're looking at it, it's just rustic as all get out. It's not shiny.
It's basically almost like dried leather, but you feel it and you're just like.
Yeah, I was a little bit worried. My cigar's pretty veiny, but it's gonna But I mean, I got a perfect burn line.
It is veiny. The burn lines are awesome. The ash is great.
It's the kind of podcast you guys doing over there? We're talking about big veiny things and good mouthfeel.
No, it actually does have a good mouthfeel. Good.
It does.
Good smoke profile to it. It's a well constructed.
I'm really enjoying it. But yeah, chocolate, mint, earth, come and go spice on the nose. Perfect construction so far. I'm digging it, and it's going really well. I'm liking the beer.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about the beer is that I really like what Unibroue offers, but unfortunately, I can't really tell a lot of difference between some of the. I can't tell the difference between this and the Tout Le Monde.
I don't really remember the Tout Le Monde. I woke up the next day like I'd been at a Megadeth concert. Yeah, it's just it's you got that fruitiness. It's very subtle sweet and nothing. I don't like sweet beers, but it's got a little.
It's got that bite on the front end that kind of lets you know that
it's
you're
good
drinking
mix,
it.
man. Unibroue knows how to do complexity, and they know how to give you flavors. Kudos. Skye, have you ever smoked a cigar?
I puffed a cigar.
Well, you live out in California. You can't smoke anywhere. Can you smoke in your own house in California anymore? No. Weed. You can smoke weed. You smoke weed everywhere, but
well, now you can. Yes. But I do remember, as a kid growing up in Oregon, my dad would sit out on the patio and he would take his little snifter. What do you call him? A Drambuie, and he would sit out with his Drambuie and his cigar on the porch, and I could see that little red tip of the cigar in the black night, and I'd go back there, and he'd push the Drambuie over to me, and I was young, and I just smell it, and my whole my nose just was on fire. And then he'd pass the cigar over, and he's like, just blow on it.
Right.
And so I go puff, 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 and I just love those memories with my dad.
I want to hang out with your dad after that description.
You should. Skye mentioned it briefly. The name of the documentary is
Junk Dreams.
Junk Dreams. She sent me the DVD when she first fixed it, and oh my god, you would have really gotten along with her dad and her uncle. It was a really you captured your family incredibly well. Okay, so we're liking the cigar.
Yep.
We're liking the beer.
Yep.
We're liking the movie.
Actually, yes.
No pressure.
I mean, it's crazy and disturbed as all get out.
Yeah,
subject matter wise. But yeah, I'm really liking this.
Okay. You know, it's funny. My New Year's resolution was we weren't going to do any movies with. For some reason, I just picked this long stream of movies with dick stuff in them, and I'm like, Tud, I promise, no more. And then that hand job scene came up, and I'm like, oh, I couldn't even get away from it. I couldn't pick a documentary without getting some. Sorry. All right, I have to ask Skye. As Jan's mom went on and on very openly about how B made her feel in ways that her husband Bob couldn't or hadn't in a long time, she used the words, he made her flutter. It wasn't just, he made me feel special. Okay, give you that. But she used these adjectives, flutter, and he was very, and just the way she delivered these memories, especially when she goes into, pretty good detail about him touching her breasts and her attraction towards him. Did that level of openness and transparency had to catch you by surprise?
It's interesting. I don't think it did. Really.
She knew she was being filmed for a movie, right?
She knew she was being filmed for a movie, but I also think it's really such a big part of the story that she was in love with him, and I think she really felt that way. I think that there is this sort of distance that you get from being 40 or 45 years removed from the story. I think this is something that she's sort of replayed in her mind time and time and time again, and it's so fascinating to me because I've heard, I hear you saying it, and I've heard people on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram saying that her reaction was just so strange to them and so kind of in love with Berchtold. And I hear that, but at the same time, I think she was in love with him, and I think that's part of how this all happened. And I think it's this kind of, she really wanted us to know what she was going through.
And I get that, but for me, it wasn't so much that she was in love with him, because I got that later when in the story when she actually runs off with him. We'll get to that. But to me, just reading her physicality and the way she was saying this, it was like you would talk about someone you had a pleasant memory of, the way he touched my breast, and just the way she her delivery of it was not the way she was talking about a man who completely destroyed her family.
Right.
It's you're right. That's what everyone is latching onto, these two parents.
Right.
And, And I honestly get her going all out with this. It's public record, and I get that. I get it a lot more, her openness, than I get, like we talked earlier with Bob, because this is a guy that still has to go to the grocery store every week, probably in his little small town. Still has to see people at the bank, and and they didn't know. For him to drop that, matzo ball,
especially since he hadn't done it before.
Especially since he hadn't done it.
I didn't realize. I thought
before.
that once I realized that there was a book about this, I thought that it might have been there. But now that I learned that it wasn't, I'm like, wow. I understand it's cathartic. I understand, wanting to release that.
And now everyone,
but still, that's a huge decision to make.
Everyone with a Netflix account
first of all,
knows your darkest secrets.
First of all, kudos for getting them that comfortable to actually divulge this stuff, because that's not an easy thing to do.
That's where I was kind of going to give props to Skye. I know you well enough I could picture you in these interviews, and I could see how you could get them at that level of comfort and conversation to where they felt like they were not only able to tell their stories, but that it was the right thing to do, and that it just flowed naturally. I mean, that's just your personality, to make people kind of, I'm a pretty guarded. I don't like new people. I don't like anybody, but I like Skye. The minute I met her, and I just, every time something like that would pour out of these people's mouths, I just kind of, and that's just kind of a unique insight, I guess. I could picture Skye sitting on the other side of the camera, and I was like, you know what, man, if anybody is gonna get them to that relaxed state of not only just telling the story, but feeling like they're a part of something important, I could see Skye doing that. But my God, man, good job. Jeez.
Well, I mean, it was brutal. I mean, these interviews were hard work.
It's brutal, but I mean, when Jan's talking about, not just I loved him and he, I really, but when she starts going into, touching the breast, and when Bob goes into the handy, you had as a filmmaker to be making fists with your toes. Like, this is good shit. Like, this is amazing stuff.
It's funny. I maybe I was like, what I remember the most is just sort of sitting behind the camera crying with them, and being with them, and just experiencing this and feeling their 45 years of regret and guilt and shame, and just kind of being with them there in that moment. The one time I felt some sort of like, yeah, I got this, was the last line of the film, which I'm sure we'll get to, but it was hard work getting to the end of the film, and that was really the only moment that I really remember going, I finally have the ending of my movie, when Jan delivered one.
I'm kind of curious, because first of all, I'm not even trying to equate the two, but I do a lot of corporate interviews, with fundraising interviews and charity interviews, and we delve everything from like selling a widget to surviving cancer, and sometimes there's we'll do an interview with soldiers that have returned home, and when I'm in these interviews, and there are a lot of raw emotions that come out in the interview. And there are, like, I've had people with me in these interviews that as soon as those raw emotions are present, they're kind of like, yeah, I got this. But in a weird way, I'm kind of like looking through the lens going, yes, it's cool. Yes, the emotion's there. But I almost felt like I had a duty to protect people in a way. Did that ever come across as I understand that you're trying to get to the truth of the matter, but did you ever have to, combat that, raw emotion that translates good on film versus, protecting people from themselves?
In editing, not in the interviews,
right.
But in editing.
Yes.
That certainly sort of came to play in that. And it was really interesting because when we shot the first round of interviews, we brought someone with us who was a journalist. And she had such a very different perspective on these interviews, because she's like, you don't feel emotion, you just go for the story, you don't feel emotion. And I was behind the camera going sort of crying with them and asking, and like really sort of being with them. And it was this very different, she's like, you can't feel emotion as a journalist. I'm like, but I'm not a journalist. I don't want to be a journalist. I don't want to do that. I want to be with these people in this emotion. So in that instance, like when we were interviewing them, it was very much that I went through such a completely huge range of emotions during the editing process. because
Yeah,
I
how
went
can you not?
believing, disbelieving, trusting, not trusting, caring, not caring, and all of these different things because you spend so much time. And it was really just, the editing was so much more challenging for me, honestly, than the interviews were, because the interviews, I just had to be with them, and that's an easy thing to do, just be with someone. But the editing was tough. It was really tough.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Well, B played this family like a violin at the local SAPS convention, and it's all going according to his master plan. Everything to a T is falling into place. We also learned that B earlier on had come to Jan's parents and confessed that he had received counseling. And this is where we were kind of on break, kind of had a disagreement, which Skye can clear up. He had received counseling through the church. I'm assuming it's not specifically stated, but for his predilection for little girls, and they had recommended as part of his ongoing therapy that he lay in bed alone and unsupervised with Jan in her bedroom at night, and no questions asked, Bob and Marianne agreed to let him do that.
Okay, now I just want to make crystal clear, was that was a psychologist who told him to do that.
Well, it was a disbarred.
It was unlicensed, and it was
but
disbarred.
you guys took that as that had happened after Jan had returned
from the first kidnapping.
No, I understood that as something that happened prior, and this was part of his.
Right.
That happened before the first kidnapping, correct?
Yeah. And so it's interesting because this is where it gets somewhat complicated, because it's what is the truth, what is not the truth. Hi. Are you live? I'm live right now. My friend Joanna just came home. She's staying with us.
Hey, how you doing?
So it becomes very interesting because it's like, what is the truth and what is not the truth? And this is where the doc got really complicated, because we have what Birchtold said, but we don't have what the therapist said. So he would come in saying, this is what the therapist told me. And it doesn't appear in the documentary, but we actually did talk to a forensic psychologist and an expert on kidnapping. And the forensic psychologist was like, look, even in the 70s, there's no way a therapist would ever say, take these tapes and go lay down with a 12-year-old little girl and you will get over your pedophilia.
Right.
So the idea was that he had been given these tapes from a therapist, licensed or not, right? In this case, not. That he had been given these tapes, and he had talked to his therapist about trying to improve sexual relations with his wife. And so we gave him these tapes that are like, so enjoy that. He took those tapes, put the headphones on, and went in and laid down next to Jan.
That I wasn't clear on. So that tape was made to improve his sexual relationship with his wife.
Well, it's kind of like, I don't know, but that's what the thinking is.
Well, it just comes across. It just comes across as just completely wrong and bizarre, and I believed it. Whereas I thought this psycho quack, unlicensed psychiatrist made him these really bizarre tapes. That listen to these about molesting a 12-year-old girl, and you won't if you listen to these, you won't actually have to do it. And he's like, well, I can
build up an immunity. It doesn't work that way.
I can get double the fun. I can listen to the tapes while I molest a 12-year-old girl.
Actually, this leads me into
that's good filmmaking where all three of us had kind of different ideas of what that was.
Or bad filmmaking. Like, that's a good question.
You've seen my films, Skye. I like that. I like confusing. Confusion is good.
I actually, that leads me into one of my only real personal questions. It is probably like my only real criticism with the documentary is that, did you ever, I'm trying to figure out, because you're nice enough to hang out and drink beer and do all this stuff.
No, bring it. It's fine.
Okay, so I can understand. No, I can't. I can't understand how this guy can be that charismatic. I mean, I've met some very charismatic people. I have met some people that I would run through walls for. I don't think I have met this kind of charismatic deal. Was there ever a time where you're like, you know what, we need this psychologist to explain this, we need this expert in the field to come in and lead and give it a little gravitas to be?
Yeah, totally. I mean, and that's why we did these 2 interviews, and then it was this really interesting thing that ended up happening, because we did these 2 long, amazing interviews, and both of these women had done this great research into the case, and then we had cut it in at one point, and it started to feel like kind of this educational documentary. Like they were kind of, you see something and you explain it, you see something, you explain it.
Right.
And there was part of me that was like, I just really want to stay with the family, and I kind of wanted there to be some confusion, like how can this happen? And
you should never have made that movie with Cade.
My esotericness rubbed off on her a little bit. Skye, are you on record as saying without Underbelly there would be no Abducted in Plain Sight?
No, I'll never.
Don't say that.
You'll never say that?
I love to say it. Never.
We have that on record.
No, I kind of figured that there was actually, you know, when you're in the editing room and you're cutting through this thing, I was like, there's no way that she had to have done this, and then it was an editorial decision. So I'm glad you kind of clarified that. I'm just, like I said, I think that there's a lot of people that are looking at this and say, there's no way this guy could be that charismatic.
But you know what? To Skye's point, and I mentioned it earlier on things that elevate the recreated footage, and rather than veering off into the church stuff, sticking with the real bad guy, let's focus on B and the family. Let's keep it here. Let's keep it at 90 minutes instead of going to 120 minutes and go all these different directions, bring in a talking shrink and all that. Because then, you know, like Skye said, you start to become Stone Phillips. You start to become
I definitely understand
something we've seen before, and this story deserves to be told in a way we don't normally get these stories.
Well, I definitely understand the fact that you don't want to, here's the scenario, and now here's the guy who tell you just what you saw. I mean, I'll skip over that. This would be a good place. I didn't even think about, I don't have this in my notes to talk about, but are you guys planning a Blu-ray, a DVD release with some of this? You have a mountain of like you said, the psychiatrist interviews. Are you guys gonna get that stuff out there at some point?
You know, it's such a phenomenal idea, and at this point, I'm like, I think it's a little too late. I mean, it's not too late for that. Like, it's a matter of sort of reincorporating that idea in a different way. Like, Blu-rays are out, they're available, they've been burned, they're there. But I think that it's certainly worthwhile to kind of cut some of these expert interviews together and just put them up for anybody to see on the website.
Yeah.
And I think it would be incredible because at one point, Stephanie Toby, one of the producers, had put together this little podcast. It's one episode. It's not I don't know, but it's like one thing where she put some of the interviews together, and they do provide an incredible amount of insight, and I think they're really, really helpful for people who are sort of going beyond just the entertainment, if you can call it entertainment value of this film, to really getting some great information. These expert interviews really provide some great insight. So it's something that's certainly worth working on, to just provide it on the website for anybody to see.
I'll tell you, I'll watch that, because one of the conversations that my wife and I had is that it's not the fact that I didn't believe that someone this could be this charismatic, because I know I'm a fan of history. I know that they're out there, but I've never met a June Jones. I've never met a Mansfield. I've never met a Rasputin.
I know.
But those. I mean, that's the level that B is. I mean, that's the kind of charisma we're talking about.
A Matthew McConaughey.
Oh yeah, I would. Yeah.
All right.
Well, no. I'm not giving McConaughey a handy. I'm sorry.
Let's get back on track. You totally would give Matthew McConaughey a handy.
After a couple beers, man.
What the fuck? All right. So as B lays in bed with Jan, we're talking 4 nights a week for 6 months leading up to the first kidnapping. He plays these creepy cassette tapes with the therapist's voice. What we now know, talking to Skye, was the therapist describing how to improve he and his wife's sex lives, and he's laying there with this young girl, and of course,
this is what we think.
that's what we think, which is the most plausible.
I think so too.
I hate to say this, but anybody that's like that never happens. They never record that stuff. Go watch Punisher because it's in Punisher too.
Well, let me ask you this, Skye. So much of the audio we're hearing is actual audio. That stuff on the tape, was that actual audio?
Yeah.
You actually how'd you get a hold of all these audio tapes?
FBI.
They had it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Jeez.
And it was, look, this is one of these instances where it really helped our film so much, because the recordings of Birch Told, these audio recordings, even though we didn't know exactly what the purpose was or where they came from or what the surrounding circumstances were, we were able to kind of piece it together from what Jan had said and what Jan had said and Birch Told. But these all, except for the alien voices were the only things that we recreated.
Yeah.
All of the telephone conversations, all of the audio tapes, all of the Birch Told voices, all of Jan and Birch Told together, all of those are real.
What is that? I don't want to get off into a tangent that some people might not find interesting, but as a documentarian, do you just file a thing with the FBI and you just get a giant file of audio tapes? Or
yeah, I wish it was that easy. Yes, you file something with the FBI, and then there's something called the Freedom of Information Act, and if anything is over 35 years old, then you have access to it, if they still have it. And this is where it's going to become very interesting from this point and into the future, because digitizing of records has been happening for a while, but not really 40 years ago or 45 years ago.
Right.
So I mean, what I imagine is some Indiana Jones style warehouse with tons and tons and tons of boxes of records in it that probably has been flooded a couple of times, because I imagine it in a basement somewhere. And then a person has to go and find these records. And so it costs a fair amount of money to hire that person to go and search for this stuff. When we did all of that, the FBI told us that the records had been destroyed. And I can't tell you how lucky we were, because when we talked to Pete, the FBI agent that we interviewed in the film, he had kept some of the records and had the audio tapes and gave us this big lawyer box full of stuff. And he didn't want us to take it with us. And so we had brought this Nagra recorder, and I brought an intern with us, the magical intern.
Sure.
Who was like, while we were doing the interview, she was scanning and she was recording and she was doing all of this stuff. And it just gave us such great insight, because we had, 5 pictures of Birch Told and no interview with him. So
I will say this: we mentioned earlier, you could have made this film without the archival footage, the 8mm original of the family footage. I don't believe you could have, as juicy as this story is, as enthralling as the narrative and the characters are, I don't think the film would be what it is without the audio component. It just wouldn't be. I
agree. I mean,
you can't recreate that.
It gave us his character, and I can't tell you, I tried so many times to have people do readings, a voiceover of Birch Told, and I had so many different takes of it of actors doing it, and there was nothing that was as chilling as hearing his voice reading the same words. And it was just
that's what I was going to ask. What was it like just listening that first time, I guess, to this was a living demon? I mean,
it was just the most, it was chilling, because and it's also this weird thing, because you're taking tapes, like not VHS tapes, audio tapes, and you're sticking them in a recorder that I ordered off of eBay and listening to it. And then I'd gone to a sound house here in LA and rented an Nagra tape, and so you're taking these tapes and winding it around on these reels and then listening to it. It was just chilling, and it was really that moment where I said, this is who this man is, and this is how we can kind of represent who this man is. Because literally we had nothing else that I felt would really give him any kind of substance besides his brother. I think his brother gives him.
I'll get to him in a minute. But no.
Hey, hang on, real quick, because you have a background in film, and especially as a DP as well. How is the thought process going into, or is there a thought process to where, like, I've got to really, I really want to make this creepy as all fuck?
Yeah. Or
do you just let it play out?
Are you asking as far as like putting effects on the audio?
Well, yeah, I mean, just from a. I mean, when you're in the editing room and you're putting all this together, and you're like, "Oh, this is just creepy as all get out. I'm going to do this," versus just like your journalist friend said, "No, strip your emotion out of there and just go with the story."
The audio recordings, some of them were, I don't know if it was the age of the tape or the way that it was recorded. Some of them were kind of like, not slow motion, but like stretched out.
Right,
you know, the audio
right.
was stretched. So we did go back in and we kind of squeezed that together. I don't even know the right terms for this, but squeezed it together so it sounded normal.
Right. You sped it up a little bit to correct for it.
There you go. Thank you.
I was going to say that.
Yes. Beyond that, we didn't do anything. I mean, it had that crispy, crunchy sort of audio recording quality, and we didn't do anything. We didn't do anything to it.
Yeah, there's no substitute for the real thing.
Yeah, there really isn't. I mean, it comes across as like, this is how we found it. This is how it plays, and why would you mess with it?
Yeah.
I want to take a quick commercial break here and talk to you fine folks about Drew Estate's Herrera Esteli Miami line. The Herrera Esteli Miami is crafted by Level 9 rollers from Cuba at the El Titan de Bronze on Calle Ocho in Little Havana, Miami. Willie Herrera's family factory and the oldest remaining fabrica in Little Havana. Like the short Corona size featured at the 2016 IPCPR trade show, the complete Herrera Esteli Miami line is expertly crafted with a lavish Ecuadorian Habano Oscuro wrapper over a rich Ecuadorian Sumatran binder with select fillers from the Dominican Republic and Nicaragua. The new look of Herrera Esteli Miami features a black and gold color tone and is only available to Drew Diplomat retailers in 5 Vitolas. Seek it out, folks. Well, again, while he's in the bedroom all these long times, the parents claim to have no clue. They didn't know what a child molester even was.
Right.
And at least at this point, with Father Bob, I believe him. And this might change towards the end of the film, but the mom at this point, I'm not sure what's going on with her. Her interviews, man, I just couldn't get past I just thought there was from her first on-screen appearance up until this point, I just felt this kind of, despite we're talking about her daughter and her family, I just felt with Bob I could see a man with butterflies in his stomach, and this guy was literally tore out his heart and put it on his sleeve for these interviews. At this point, Mom, I'm just getting this kind of steely, not a real emotional connection to what's going on here, but maybe she'd prove me wrong going forward.
All right, we'll hang on to that.
So moving on, it turns out that once B drugged Jan.
Sorry. Can we not move on for a second?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever said that to us.
No, please move on.
This is a really curious thing to me because I do feel like of Bob and Marianne, like people have more negative feelings towards Marianne than they do Bob. And I'm curious why that is. And there's part of me that feels like it is kind of a judgment. And I love that I'm talking to 3 guys here, because is it kind of our preconceived idea of what women are supposed to be, and so we judge them harsher?
I don't know. I don't necessarily think that, because when I look at Bob, I can see the consternation in his face. I can actually see him like going through almost like a Terminator reel of, should I divulge this? How am I? No, I think I need to protect this. Oh, fuck it, I'm going to just say it. With her, she was very reserved, and I think that comes across regardless of whether you're a male or a female.
But she was reserved in her delivery, but she was saying very.
But her micro tics were saying like, "Hey,
She taught. I didn't get. With Bob, I got from his delivery, and this is physicality. We're judging physicality. We're judging
micro expressions.
We don't know motives. We don't know in the internal workings here. But with Bob, I just got a sense of overwhelming regret over how he handled everything. That's the way he expressed it.
Yeah.
With Marianne, I didn't get the regret. I got that she was telling me the truth. Why would she lie about such intimate moments? Why would she? But I didn't. Just put it point blank. I got from Bob, man, I fucked up a lot at every turn in the story. I fucked up. From Marianne, I got, I made some mistakes, but, Bob made some mistakes too. And it just she seemed not as willing. I'm not going to say that because Bob none of them seem really willing to take the weight of Jan's immeasurable pain. That's on you as parents. Just say it. That's on us as parents. What you went through was because of our shortcomings and our failures. None of them said that.
This is such a fascinating
None
project.
of them said that. I mean, Bob was quick to say, well, we did some things right. We always loved her.
No, and
it's not enough, Bob. It's not enough.
Actually, when the documentary sums up, they did a bunch of things right. There's no way you come out of this even remotely close to whole unless you've done some things right.
Well, I think a lot of that is on Jan. And we haven't talked a lot about Jan. We'll get to her in a minute. But, I mean, I think a lot of that is on Jan being the superhuman.
Jeez.
From an emotional... Skye, you mentioned, maybe audiences judging Bob and Marianne differently, and maybe because we're three guys, maybe, looking at Bob differently because he's a guy. That's hard for me to say.
I'm totally I need to ask my wife that.
Just
right
myself.
Now. Hey, Bob or Jan?
But I'll tell you this: the
opposite too. Like you could even judge him harsher because you're three guys judging him. Like,
well, sure. As a father of all girls,
right?
Yeah, but I'm also not a gay florist. In the 70s, God knows how hard that was.
Oh God, in a small town, when later on when they talk about. The leverage of exposing his homosexual affair. I understand that. I mean, I literally understand that.
But I think
still,
I think as a counter argument to maybe the way that some audience members are judging Marianne's the way she comes off in this, I would like to counter. Yes, I do come off very, very, very strongly against Marianne in this and what she gave to us. God, she gave us her honest story.
Actually, I'm pretty much an equal opportunity.
But at
this here,
we're all very. I mean,
they're. No, I have a hard time just.
But at the same time,
seeing how they rationalize.
But at the same time, to Skye's argument, maybe the difference in perception with men and women audience members. Every time Jan showed up on screen, modern day Jan doing the interviews.
Yeah.
I couldn't wrap my head around the strength. I couldn't wrap my head around the I think I say it later in my notes. I mean, you have this mature woman who's so centered And I'm sure there's outtakes where she lost it, and you had to, cut the cameras and let her compose. It had to have happened. But she comes across with this strength and this iron will to overcome bad shit and not only get that story out, but to move on with her life. I mean, she seems more centered and normal than I do.
That's true.
I mean, I go to a therapist for piddly shit. I'm actually not going to therapy anymore after this movie. I quit.
I know.
I got nothing to complain about. I'm good. I'm good.
It does an amazing job of giving perspective of what our own problems are, or aren't.
Or
really.
aren't. I think that's very apt. Well, it turns out, to jump back in real quick, and I am going to, see we're getting close on the cigar, but hold your thoughts. It turns out that once B drugged Jan, he was always giving, the parents say, he was always giving her vitamins and allergy pills, which now, of course, again, we say this a lot on our TNA movies. It was the 80s. It was the 70s here. I guess some neighborhood close family friend can give your kids pills. He transferred her from the car that they had left in to his motorhome. And here's where shit gets unbelievably surreal. She wakes up and she's restrained to a bed with like leather wrist and ankle straps. And there's an intercom-like device playing messages to her in an alien voice. The voice explains to her that she is part alien. Her mother's real. Her mother's her actual mother. She has an alien father, kind of like Jesus, which is a story she knows all too well growing up in the church. And her mission, she's told, is to create a baby with the chosen one, B, by the age of 16, or else her family would suffer horrific consequences. And because she loves and trusts B as someone that, like an uncle or her own father, to such an intense extent, she follows her marching orders. You see, B also, when she gets out of the straps and finds him, he's beat himself up to kind of sell the story of the alien, not abduction, but alien interaction. This fucker's thought of everything. I mean, he's literally left no details to if you can think it, he covered it. I mentioned we haven't talked much about Jan's interviews. God, especially when she's talking about this one, where so many victims would have cracked or taken to smoking crack to deal with these nightmarish memories. She just comes across as so composed and healthy at this point in her life, if that makes sense. I asked earlier, and I kind of didn't give you a chance to answer. Were there moments where she just came unglued talking to you?
Yeah, yeah. It was the biggest moment that I remember really was when we walked into her apartment the first time. As we walked through the door with all of our gear, she just looked at Stephanie and I, and she just burst into tears, like before we even started talking.
Oh, jeez.
And we just went up and we hugged her, and we just. But it was this, to me, it was this like moment where it was just like she knew what she was about to set in motion. This film and this documentary, and it was this like she was happy, sad, all those emotions. But I remember just walking through the door and her bursting into tears, and the rest of it was sort of came as you would expect it. But it was that was the most telling to me, because it was just. I mean, I think she really knew at that moment what she was setting herself up for, what she was setting her parents up for, and her sisters up for, and really everybody. And look, I think we've honestly been able to sort of capture lightning in a bottle with this film. I don't think this is a normal thing. I think that this word of mouth is something that is extraordinary in two very opposing directions. It's great to get it out there, but it is out there in a massive way. In 190 countries we're on with
Yeah.
Netflix.
Yeah. I mean, it's
It's 90 countries judging.
I imagine that reaction though had to kind of put you at ease, as you're going to get the real Jan. If she had been completely, shook your hand and sat down, and
Yeah.
I think by her having that moment of complete vulnerability, it had to let you know, like, all right, you know what, I've got a comfort level here that I'm going to get honesty.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, like, having you say it and thinking back, yeah, I think that was probably true at the moment. It was just such compassion for her and such, such thankfulness. You enter into these situations and you sit down and you talk to people about their lives, and the most intimate, destroying, just moments of their life, and they sit in there, they tell you these moments, and the feeling is something that's kind of indescribable, where you just, it's just this honor that people are willing to share something like that with you.
It's a privilege.
It is, yeah, for sure.
Well, the alien voice finally gives Jan the command after some more time on the road in the RV. The alien voice tells her to go tell B that it's time to do what makes people happy. And we see in recreated footage B grab her hand and take her to the back bedroom of the RV. Just that shot of him taking her to the bedroom and closing the door. I'm sorry, that's more disturbing than anything you shot for me in my real horror film. Oh my God, when he closed the door. But it gets worse. We then stay tight on young Jan's face as B penetrates her for the first time. We stay on her face for an uncomfortable, just long, it seems like an eternity.
Yeah.
Hell, 1 second would be an eternity, But we just look down at Jan, and you already mentioned that conversation that went in with this young actress, and we're looking at her as we hear grown-up real Jan's voiceover describe the sexual encounter, about how he would only go in an inch. He didn't want to burst the hymen. He's already thinking ahead to the things. Yeah. Skye, I'm a hard egg to break.
Was it too much, though? Do you?
No,
think?
no, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. But
I will say the cuts away to the skylight and the trees.
You know what?
Were just
You said something earlier, Skye,
effing brilliant.
And this is why you're more than a DP or more than a documentarian. This is why you're a filmmaker. You were mentioning the memory of your dad with that cigar outside, and the light of it in the dark night. And it's a visual imprint that you always have. She tells us that she looked up through the skylight in the RV, and there was a branch and some leaves hanging over. And she focused out that window as B is raping her. It's rape. But to get through it, as, what is she now, 12?
Yeah. I think she's 12, yes.
It's 12.
The real Jan is telling us about how she focused on this branch and this leaf. Skye films out the top of this RV a branch hanging over and that leaf. And that's why you're a filmmaker. I mean, that, knowing the significance of your dad's cigar butt in the darkness, knowing how imprinted that branch out that RV was to Jan, and lingering on it when we finally cut away from her little face. Screw you, Stone Phillips. This is how you do it.
And it's something that's very human. Because there's a lot of times, maybe it's not a situation where somebody was raping, but you get the news that your wife is dying, or you get the news that your parents have died. There's a lot of times when you go into like this little deal to where you fixate on something, and by
Jan's modern day retelling of it, and the way Skye captured it, it was cinema. It was pure cinema, and those are the documentaries that I can get behind, is when they incorporate those touches, and that scene was.
It's a horrible situation, but a very human situation.
Sadly,
if that makes sense.
That shot, looking out at the leaves on those trees, it's so, I'm so glad you mentioned it because it's my favorite shot in the film.
There's one other that would have been my favorite. We'll get to my favorite shot in the film here pretty quick. But yeah, and I honestly had the maybe twisted thought of like, I can't imagine when Jan, the real Jan, watched this film, when she saw the leaf out of the top of the RV. What the hell did she? I mean,
yeah.
Yikes! That's a question. That's a question for Jan.
Yeah.
She'll never talk to us.
If she's seen any of our podcasts, no.
Okay. Well, it turns out B marries Jan down in Mexico. They learned this from, I'm sorry, this guy, B's brother, who B has been in touch with over the phone during all this. Man, that dude's a real character, huh?
Well, he's a character.
You could do a whole movie, I imagine, on this guy.
Oh, I know. He's a character, but he's also the only.
He did seem to have a pretty good moral compass.
I know, but he's the only one that would talk to us, and so there's, it was very interesting. But I also respect him, and look, he's the only guy that would talk to us from their family, and his reasoning behind that was because he wanted to give his brother a voice. And it's funny because the more I think about it, I sit there going, I think about my sister and I'm like, okay, what would she have to do to make me turn against her? And I sit there going, there's nothing she could do where I would completely disown her from my life. Nothing.
Yeah, that man, this guy is so effing complex because on one hand, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's family. That's his brother. And on the other hand, Jesus.
Yet he comes across as one of the least complex. Like, he comes across as just the most.
But to me, that's what makes him complex.
Even after 40 years, I mean, how do you wrap your head around that your brother's a sociopath?
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, like there in all the interviews, I never doubted this guy. I never doubted a word he said.
No, I didn't either. He was like, the only one I actually.
Okay. Hang on.
Which is weird because he's like a used car salesman and kind of a redneck and like. I believe this guy.
Go ahead, Skye.
Well, I was just going to say it's so fascinating to me because you believe him because he's so outrageous. Whereas everybody else, you're kind of sitting there going, are they telling the truth? Are they not telling the truth? Are they protecting themselves? And I kind of felt the same way, even with Berchtold, whereas like when I first read the papers that he had written about this homosexual encounter with Bob Broberg, I was like, that's not true. And then I found out it was, and so I got to a point where I was like, everything he said is actually true. And so I had to really sort of look at my response to this. And look, I think everything that Broberg said is true as well. But I expected them to be truthful, and these other people that I didn't expect to be truthful were as well. And that's complicated. It
is. Let me ask you, this is a question I had for the end, but I'll go ahead and jump in here. Some of it. So none of B's kids, I don't know if his wife's still alive, they were completely not interested in talking to you whatsoever?
No.
Why would they?
Yeah, I mean, we had like a 15-second conversation on the phone before it was ended on their part. But I asked them if they would be interested, and they knew because Joe Berchtold is still in contact with them, and basically they said it's ancient history, it's behind them, and they had no desire to really open this Pandora's box again.
Right.
And you're absolutely right. Why would they? There's no reason why they would.
Sure. Okay. Well, B tells his brother that he won't return to the U.S. unless Jan's parents agree to let them marry again there. Naturally, they don't agree to this. I say naturally, but who knows with these two goobers.
Right.
So B's brother does the right thing and has his phone tapped so the FBI can trace B's location.
Hey, brother.
And they send in the Mexican police to scoop him up. But once in the Mexican jail, B manages, he bribes one of the guards with his
F you Mexican
gold
police.
watch. That's,
I'm sorry.
That,
as soon as I
that's
saw
shocking.
this, no, it's not shocking. But as soon as I saw this in the movie, I'm like, yeah, that makes totally sense.
What? Mexican policia can be bought off?
Come on.
That's the shocking revelation tonight.
Yeah.
B manages to let them talk to Jen one last time in the prison. He tells her if she reveals anything about their mission, the alien stuff, them having sex, obviously, the aliens will blind her sister and kill her father. So, as she's sent back to the States, she clams up tight, doesn't say a word on her return.
And keep in mind, this is a 12-year-old, very naive girl. This is a fucking asshole.
We can't agree on that.
Yeah.
He is an asshole. Speaking of assholes,
The cigar is not an asshole.
final thoughts on the cigar.
I really like it. I really like it.
My lips are tingling. It got a real weird jump up in spice at the end. My lips are tingling. I got a lot more chocolate in the final third. Did you get that?
Yes.
Still get some mintiness, a little bit of that Nicaraguan earth.
And it's strong enough to hang in with this Unibroue.
I call it the Maudite. What'd you call it, Skye? The
Maudite.
Maudite.
The Maudite.
Yeah.
I think she's right. The Maudite. I really liked it too, and it didn't get it's still not getting hot. I'll be smoking on this for another. But I see he's almost cashed. You're just getting farther, but the flavors little ebb and flow with the.
I didn't really get a lot of ebb and flow with it. It was pretty much the same cigar from foot to the last. But it was a good tasting cigar. It's right in my palate, so okay. I can't complain about that. I'm curious about the price point.
Yeah,
though.
well, let's do that now. We always guess Price is Right style, and if you get anything in your final third that comes out of nowhere, let me know. All right, price point, Cody.
Tough one. I'm gonna probably say
a new look for Punch, a new era in Punch cigars. They've been around forever. Legendary Cuban brand brought to the States by General Cigar Company. $11 for 6-inch cigar.
Wait.
Well, we've been smoking on what, an hour and a half?
Yeah, I was going to go 1050.
I'm going to go $10.49.
You son of a...
Price is Right style. This cigar will run you $7.19.
What?
Even Skye think that's a good deal.
That is a good deal.
Yes.
That is a really good deal.
Yeah.
For this cigar.
What'd you say, 11?
I said 11.
Yes.
You said 10.50? I said 10.49. I won since I was the lowest without going over.
Whatever.
Or I did go over, I guess. Yeah.
That's a really, really good price
That's
point.
a great price point.
Yeah.
If I didn't know, I would have gone 9. Because it's a punch are usually on the reasonable scale. That's unbelievable. And you can go to famoussmokeshot.com, get yourself some Punch Diablos, enter promo code TNCC20, and if you spend $100, you get $20 off.
And don't just go to famoussmoke.com. Go to TuesdayNightCigarClub.com, hit the Famous Smoke banner, and then put in TNCC20.
Spend $100, get 20 back. You can't beat that. You cannot beat that. Okay. Well, unless you see something else with a cigar, jump in. I'm going to leave it alone. And the beer is, as I predicted, it's growing on me.
You can't go wrong with Unibroue.
You really can't. They don't make bad beer.
They don't.
Well, Jan's back, and she's changed now. She's not the same girl they once knew. Understandably, obviously. She's somewhat distant, hollow in regards to her family, and she's still overly concerned about B's welfare. He's been charged with kidnapping, and a physician's exam showed that Jan had not been sexually assaulted. Remember, he was very careful
God, this is an asshole.
to not break her hymen. God, can you imagine that? Just on top of all that weird alien shit and all the rape in the RV.
Just to
Then
be
you got to
so fucking
go into a doctor
methodical.
and get... She's 12 years old. That's why it's so unbelievable me that she's so healthy as an adult, seemingly.
Not only that, but I mean, just think of the situations that she went to. She was actually placed in a holding cell as well.
Oh yeah, in a Mexican prison. I forgot about that.
Well, not only that, but she was placed in a holding cell when she came
when she came
to
back.
the States too.
She was fingerprinted and the whole 9 yards there. But she does, begin assimilating back and acting normal in school. But she keeps this distance between her family as she knows her mission, which has been ingrained in her brain at this point, isn't complete as long as she's separated from B.
And the worst thing about it is that she's protecting her family. Now you've got a 12-year-old who's tasked not only with saving the world, but protecting her family and her sisters as well.
Correct. And your family thinks, well, obviously they have no clue that is weighing on her shoulders. I'll go now. The FBI agent in charge. Again, I really like this guy. He warns Jan's parents to not have any contact with B or any of his family under any circumstances. But of course, her parents don't listen to him. So on Christmas Eve, B's wife, Gail, is she still alive, Gail?
Yeah.
She is.
Yep.
She comes over and asks Bob and Marianne to sign some affidavits stating that Jan had permission to go with B, and they in no way want to see charges pressed, or else B will be forced to reveal his homosexual encounter with Bob, and in the mid-1970s, that's a big fucking deal. So it's another big moment in the recreation, them signing those documents. They signed the affidavits saying that Jan wasn't taken against her will or held against her will, and just like that, B is set free.
Bob, how?
Marianne does tell us the general public wasn't happy with that decision. No shit. Even in the 70s, that's completely crazy.
It's just very difficult. I had a hard time with this because, I mean, I'm viewing them, by the standards of looking at my own parents. And if if mom had a daughter and she thought for one instance some man had touched her, he'd be dead in a cornfield.
I think
that's not a thing. I mean, that happens enough in this area.
Yeah.
No, I know your family. That's not. Those aren't hollow words.
Mom's hand would be on the shovel.
This isn't a time or a culture issue. It's just how. This is one of those impact moments where I was like, how?
Yeah. This was almost the signing of those affidavits was. Well, I mean, how do you rank these things? Letting him sleep with her in her bedroom, letting him build a wall in her bedroom to separate her from her. I mean, like, you could rank these bad choices, but it's pointless. So B moves to Utah when he's released to work at his brother's car dealership. Imagine that, he's an amazing used car salesman. But he was still coming home on the weekends to Idaho to see his family, and he's also sneaking into Jan's bedroom with his little alien intercom and raping her more. How do you not know guys coming into your house? Like, that was... Hey, it was the 70s.
Well, it was also sort of how their house was set up.
And she was clearly willing at this point. She would open... it wasn't stated, but I imagine she opened the window.
I'm curious. How was the house set up?
She was in the basement, right?
Yeah, but so you go in. Let me see if I can get on the screen here. So there's a kitchen door that opens, and it goes. If you turn to the right, you go in the kitchen, and if you go straight down, you go into the basement to the room. So, and the parents' bedroom was back over. Like, if you went right through the kitchen back in, you get to the parents' bedroom. But if you just went straight down the basement, and then you'd get to that big room that there was closed off into two rooms, and you just go to the end of the hall, and that was Jan's room. So it would have been so easy to sneak in and go down that hallway to their room without anybody even really hearing you.
Really? I mean, how heavy of sleepers are these people? Because my wife will wake up if the cat is 3 rooms over licking a magazine.
I'm thinking about back, in the 80s when we were kids, how easy it was to sneak in and out of the house at night to, go egg houses or to get your friend. I mean,
it is true.
It is.
I'm sorry, Mom and Dad.
Maybe you would have had a little more awareness, seeing as you just brought your daughter back from Mexico.
I'm just
And the
saying
guy
that
who
there
took
might have
her-
been a point where I'm sitting in that kitchen with a shotgun.
Yeah. Well,
I'd like to think that.
he also B smuggles notes into her school telling her to go to random phone booths in town where an alien voice over the phone would hammer home the importance of the ongoing mission. They also wrote love letters back to one another. Man, I think the inclusion of these letters, Skye, is so essential to getting into her teenage head and
Yeah.
and the way he manipulated it. You should actually show the letters with Jan reading them. That's cool.
Oh, that was a recreation too. Jan's little voice was
Yeah.
an act that we had reading them. That was the other.
That makes sense.
Before.
But
Yeah.
still, just to see the letters alone, just that visual was.
I know the way. To me, it was always just the way that she wrote. You know, those big sort of bubbly letters.
Even
It was very
even the
12-year-oldish.
stationery with like the
Yeah.
little, because everybody used that cheesy stationery back then with like the little, guy looking at a sunset at the bottom.
The bad thing is that I've done enough of these style of videos to where I'm like, I'm watching the display of the letter and the masking as you're going line by line, and it's like because her letters loop into the next line, and there's like letters cut off, and I'm like, oh, that's such a pain in the ass to deal with. I'm sorry. Editorial note. Well, B's hook is in her now more than ever, even though they're technically separated. The shift from I love B like I love my father to I love B like a man is complete now, and she tells her mother that she wants to marry him.
Yeah.
It's so profoundly sad and at the same time enthralling because you just can't make this shit up. I mean, at this point in the story, you literally can't. A creative mind, a creative storyteller just couldn't make it up. I mean, if you tried to make this into a Lifetime movie today, The Wrong Neighbor, they'd tell you to get the fuck out of it. And they'll make anything into a movie, and they'd tell you this is too crazy.
Always is this thing is truth is stranger than fiction.
Never is that
one
more
of
apparent.
the penultimate examples.
Skye, if I direct a Lifetime movie, will you collaborate with me?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm writing one now. It's called The Wrong Podcast. Oh God, I've said too much.
It's based on a Christmas story.
I've said. Perhaps we'll talk later, Skye. We skip ahead to the spring of '75, and Marianne agrees to meet B to talk about Jan. And somehow he starts stroking her leg, telling her that it's actually her that he loves. And they end up doing it in his RV. She has sex with B, the man who kidnapped and married his daughter in Mexico. Her daughter in Mexico. It was then, at this point, Marianne admits she knew she crossed a line. Oh, jeez.
This is one of those instances where I do think that there would have been weight to having an expert opinion on it, because I'm just like,
on her instead of B, like her psychology,
because there is no way, and I mean it's hard for rational people to rationalize insanity, and that's kind of what I'm thinking that we're trying to do.
You think Marianne was insane?
Both of them. I just, there's nothing relatable here. I'm like, how does this fucking happen
between the two kidnappings, right?
Right.
Yeah, I know.
She wrote a book. We'll get to the book later, Blind Innocence, about this whole thing, but
Stolen Innocence.
Stolen Innocence. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's right. But
Blind Innocence is your Hallmark.
That's
story.
Another Lifetime movie I'm working on. Blind Innocence. She should have called her book "I'm Literally the Worst Goddamn Mother That's Ever Walked the Earth" by Marianne. I mean, come on. She's terrible. She's the world's. I mean, oh my God. Okay. Skye, you got to know this woman. Is there a side to her in her story I'm not seeing here? Like, they continued to screw for 8 months. She says she loved him, but as she's saying this, I got to that thing of regret. She gets this little smile on her face, and she's like, "It was a very exciting time in my life." Quote. Yeah, that was a quote. Quote unquote. It was a very exciting time in my life. Yuck. Like,
I know, but see, you sort of experience it as, and you're saying she had the smile on her face, and it's so interesting to me because I feel like you experience it that way, that she had the smile on her face, and I experience it in this way where I just hear so much regret in her statement when she says, it was a very exciting time in my life. And I can see her sort of reflecting back on that. And that's where I, whatever it was, 20 or 30 or an hour ago, where I kind of go, what is this, maybe this different perspective between men and women, and or maybe it's even me sitting in the room with her and kind of knowing what our 10-hour interview was, and maybe that didn't get across in the documentary so well, but to me, there was this deep sense of like, I know I did this, and this is what I felt, and I did love him, and I think there was regret in that more than like.
I didn't. And to just check one in our box. My wife saw it as I saw it. She missed the regret in Marianne. She just didn't see it, and it didn't help that during the time that Marianne was having this affair with B, he visited Jan on 9 different occasions and spent the night with her alone at least twice.
Yeah.
That's not stolen innocence. That's given innocence.
Yeah, and that's where it gets complicated, because it's just so hard to understand, and Marianne was so involved with him and so in love with him. I think.
I guess maybe a part of it. I don't want to dwell on it, but I think maybe a part of it is, as a parent, you're kind of your one golden rule is to put your kids' needs and safety and pretty much everything, once you do it above your own. And it wasn't like this happened in the early days of B. He's kidnapped her and married her, right. and now you're, after that is when you've chosen to fool around with him. That just kind of betrays everything that you're programmed to as a parent. Right. And where we see Bob again, it's physicality. It's just the perception of Bob kind of trembling and at the thought of his daughter in these situations. I got Marianne, as she reflected, thinking more about her daughter and her.
Yeah.
I didn't get. Bob seemed to kind of cut himself out of the picture at some point, and like this is about Jan, where Marianne kind of was like, this is Jan and I's story, not just Jan's story.
I think one of the things that I kind of take away from both of their interviews, and I could just be going way too forensic geek here. Bob always looked away from the camera. He always looked away from you. He would look you in the eye, but he would also, like, when he was recollecting, he would look down.
Yeah, he'd look down a lot.
And he would fidget. And it wasn't like... It was weird because she never broke... She didn't break concentration a lot. She was constantly looking at you. She knew what she was delivering. I don't know. It's just... I don't know. Maybe there is a lot of truth in, to how the sexes both view this.
Oh no, there's definitely that's there.
But see, the funny thing is that with my view of the sexes, and again being a cat parent that I am, I put most of the onus on Bob. I mean, like, if we want to go way
because
old,
he's a dad.
Yeah, if we want to go way old fashioned, that's your daughter, and I have a hard time relating with him, even though at the same time that I have a hard time relating with him, I can sympathize with him a lot. Yeah. So it's a really weird dynamic there. It really is.
Well, Bob, speaking of Bob, he finally makes a move and files for divorce to get his kids away from wife and B. Unlike Marianne, despite not calling the cops for 5 days after the initial kidnapping, and despite letting B sleep in his daughter's room unsupervised 4 nights a week, like you said, I'm starting to garner a little bit of sympathy for old Bob. Did he ever reveal if he was bisexual or if like that? Did they stay married?
Yeah. They stayed married.
They're married now?
Yeah. Bob actually passed away in November.
Oh, okay.
And so, but they were married up until he passed away. So they absolutely stayed married. And it's also a very curious thing to me, I think, because it is something that people have fixated on in social media, like, is he gay? Is he not gay? Did it go on longer than this? And it's interesting to me because I kind of go, well, what does it really matter? Because that blackmail was there, regardless if it happened once or twice or 300 times or wherever that seed was planted. But it is interesting that people are like, oh, I think
that was a poor choice of words, Scott.
Sorry. Sorry. But it's curious to me because...
That was a poor thing to point out, Cade.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm sorry, the seed was planted.
Yes. The idea was there, but it's something people have really grasped onto because they think that it happened longer than it did. And to me, I don't know. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. We could never find any real evidence that it did or didn't. This was Bob's recollection, and he remembered it happening one time. And to me, that was kind of enough to know that this shift of power had sort of occurred. And all of a sudden, Berchtold had a lot of leverage and could use it against...
Oh, absolutely. I just took it as Bob being a good friend.
No.
Well, you would know.
Would you?
You're in the hot seat.
Look, it was an intense film shoot. Things happened. We had to stay on schedule. Don't judge me.
I did what I had to do.
I did what I had to do. So, moving on, B doesn't take the news of the divorce well. He starts threatening Bob over the phone. He tries to convince Marianne to run off with him, telling him, my heart is with you. He's desperate at this point. But an apologetic Marianne decides she wants to be with Bob. She says she recognized, through the advice of her lawyer, actually, that B is a cancer on their family that must be removed. So she does what she has to do, and we see husband and wife reconcile. And we've learned they stayed together till Bob passed away in November. Well, B wasn't totally off the hook as far as the initial kidnapping. The judge did end up sentencing, despite them signing those affidavits. He sentenced him to 5 years, which got knocked down to 45 days. And with good behavior, he served a little over a week. But we still see crazy shit like that in the court system these days.
Yeah, we do.
Guys rape a kid and get a slap on the wrist from some southern judge, and we see it every. I mean, that nonsensical
we do
stuff from judges still happens. In the 3 months that he was free before his sentencing, B buys a family fun center in Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
Of course he does.
This would be like R. Kelly investing in a Chuck E. Cheese.
Yep.
Who the hell's gonna let this happen? Well,
nope.
Well, they wouldn't know. They would have no clue. God, jeez. Jan begs her parents to go to work for B at the Family Fun Center, and while Bob gives a hard no, Mom, she's being difficult at home. She's just relentless.
I don't care.
Mom finally caves and buys her a plane ticket
to
go live with B in his motorhome once again. How old was she at this point, Skye? 15? 14.
No. I'm sorry. And even it was a weird conversation that me and my wife had at this point. If I were in Bob's shoes, and you can't. I know you can't do this because you can't put yourself there until you're actually there. But I'm like, I've got to divorce you for the sake and the safety of my kids. I have to get you away from them. The moment you put her on a plane,
it doesn't matter.
You are endangering my child.
But at this point in our story, Todd, it doesn't matter. She's gone. She's already there.
But it does matter because eventually, if I get her back, my wife who put my baby girl on a plane to a fucking pedophile that married her in Mexico, I've got to get you away. I love you, honey, but I got to get you away.
I think
But
that
you think, like if you didn't know he was a pedophile, like because look, I'm not trying to sort of stick up for anybody or
no, just
or
devil's advocate.
fine. But yeah, playing devil's advocate here. Like, because they still didn't really, I mean, maybe they knew, but in a very subconscious way, they didn't actually, it wasn't real to them that he was a pedophile.
Okay,
What
let me.
thought that that their 14-year-old daughter was in love with a 40-year-old man.
Exactly. That's where, even if you take sex totally out of the equation,
Right.
pedophile totally out of the question, a 40-year-old man married my daughter, actually took my daughter to Mexico, married him. I'm sorry, I've got to get her
But
away from that.
Do you want to
dude.
complicate this a little bit more? If you're Bob, yeah, she flew to Wyoming to be with this 40-year-old man, but he's also the same 40-year-old man that drove me out to the country and asked me for a hand job.
Exactly.
Maybe Bob's thinking that this guy isn't. How could he be inclined to little girls when I'm giving him a tug?
Little girls or his wife.
Or his wife. He's
This
your head could go a million.
My brain just
A million
exploded.
fractions.
I'm just saying, if you're Bob, you're like, you know what? He sure liked what I did to him. How could he like anything from a girl? I'm just saying, Bob's a human being with thoughts.
So complicated.
Drop that in your brain box. All right.
Romperoo numbnuts.
I said earlier the moment with the leaf over the RV was my second place standout cinematic moment in the film. Here we have the transcendent moment, as far as I'm concerned, where I'm watching a movie. I'm not watching something on TV. I'm not watching a paint by numbers documentary, true crime documentary. Skye, you play a cassette recording here of Jan and B talking about one of her dreams, and I believe it's the only audio that they both appear on together, talking to each other. And while we're listening to the conversation, there's one. I'd say it's hellish, but this is like a million feet under hell, where he asks her if she's ever watched Sesame Street.
Yeah.
But as they're having this conversation, you show us 8mm footage of a random vast green field with blue skies and white clouds above. And I could see you behind the camera as a director and as a DP purposely making us feel something there, using abstract visuals of the field and the sky mixed with their two muffled voices on this old ass audio melded together. Man, well done, my friend. That moment of that dialogue with those two, and you chose to do that shot, which made no sense. You could have shown anything with that backdrop of that audio. You could have made it really creepy and just showed his motorhome, like in a still shot.
Yeah.
You could have shown Jan at the fun park, being a lifeguard, whatever. But the fact that you chose that field and that sky, it just was. And you guys have been here 88 episodes. I don't use the word poetic a lot. That is a poetic choice, and that's what rises this movie above the pack. Stuff like that. That shit was incredible.
Thanks. There are a few moments where it gets to that level, and then there's others where it doesn't quite get there. But there, I agree. I mean, I kind of sit there going, it's those kind of moments that I go, these are my favorite moments of the film.
Well,
for sure.
I didn't. When I first viewed it, I didn't appreciate that scene, but hearing it said like that, no, there was a lot of weight that gave the audio, because you cleared out the scenery, because there wasn't anything that was drawing your attention into the scene.
The easy choice would have been to show some
Right.
pictures of them.
You get to focus all on that audio.
All you're hearing is them, and you have nothing to look at. But
I didn't make that connection. That's a good point.
we had a lot of instances on the film we shot together, Underbelly, where Skye and I would in between shots, even, we're in Texas in the summer. It's gorgeous. We would see a cloud pattern, or we would see a flock of birds flying, and I'd grab her by the arm, and we'd be like, she'd whip that camera up in the sky, and if you watch that film, so many of, let's get our Terrence Malick on. So many of those just spur of the moment. You just see something and it makes sense, and you don't even know when you're going to use it or if you're going to use it. But I don't know when you shot that field in those clouds, and if you had any clue that it would be included, if it was an editor's choice even, I don't know, but it was just perfect.
Yeah, it is that gut feeling where it's not something that's necessarily planned, and then you cut it in and it just works, and it's really, really a great feeling.
I just like Tut was saying, if you had played that audio over pictures of them together, because you only had so many of those or anything, it wouldn't have. It just lets you just hear it, and it was perfect. All right, Jan is eventually brought home. The weight of the alien's mission still weighing heavily on her fragile shoulders. But B keeps calling, putting on the pressure until Jan finally sneaks out of her basement bedroom window and runs off with B for a second time. As she's gone and missing, B continues to call Marianne on the phone, telling her that he's talked to Jan, but she's not with him. Marianne tells us 3 days of agony goes by. I'm sorry, maybe Bob. I think Bob said that. But they're still not telling anybody. They say they're with her grandparents because they don't want to get the press in here and make a big stir. For 2 fucking weeks, they don't say anything. Now you deserve that stare at me. I gave you the whole Bob was like, maybe the guy's into hand jobs thing. All right, 2 weeks. You're
the protector of the fucking family.
Maybe some parenting counseling? I don't know.
It was the 70s. That didn't exist.
It was the
back
70s.
Then.
So now Bob and Jan are both MIA, but he keeps calling Marianne to tell her that he's been communicating with Jan, and unfortunately he says she's living a hard life of prostitution on the streets and selling drugs.
Fucking bastard.
It's in these audio recordings that I really gave up on Marianne. She's far too friendly, and I realized she was taping these conversations for the FBI and whatnot.
She's probably trying to draw him out.
But she's so Hey B, how are you? But here's where it got me. When he tells her about the prostitution and whatnot, she just gives oh dear. Your 14-year-old fucking kid is selling drugs and prostituting?
Yeah, but at the same time, we don't know what... I mean, when the FBI comes in and they're going to start setting up a sting and they're going to start setting up... They're coaching her as well. They're telling her, keep him on, try to draw him in, try to draw him out.
I understand that.
I'm assuming that's going on.
But she's not Meryl Streep. She's not... She's still a mother who's hearing that her kid's a prostitute, and I just... Her voice on those tapes sounded like her delivery in the interviews. I just... stolen innocence, my ass. Sold innocence. It's like...
Like I said, I'm viewing this through my own parents, and I'm like, I can't relate to these people.
The book should have been called Selfish Indifference.
That fits. It's apt.
One man's opinion. And this goes on for 3 long... This guy's just burying her head in that. I just
like that look you gave up to the TV to just look at her reaction. And you're like, oh, God.
Sometimes because we're doing our normal thing here, I forget Skye's there. I'm like, oh, God, yeah. Hey, no holds barred. We're just doing what we do. But this goes on for 3 long months with them talking, and she also asked him. So
at one point, when did they go Mel Gibson? Give me back my daughter.
No, that doesn't happen. And she asked him during these conversations, "Do you still want to marry Jan?" Oh yeah, she's the only one for me. 90 days into Jan's second disappearance, the FBI tracks down B in Salt Lake City. Inside his motorhome, he has these huge poster-sized photos of Jan all over the place, but he swears up and down he doesn't know where she is.
Okay, I've got to ask, where did you recreate the posters? Okay, you did. Because that was freaky.
Yeah.
Yeah. yeah, we recreated the photos, and it's a little bit of a funny story because I was like, who's gonna print these photos? Like, is anybody gonna print these photos for me? These are creepy. Like,
You can't go to Walgreens.
Oh no, they'll do it. I mean, don't ask questions. They will.
They totally did. Like, it was not that hard. I was like, I was expecting this big, huge. Like, I contacted a friend of mine who was a printer, and I'm like, I might need like a favor. This is what like the whole thing. And he's like, yeah, I can help you out. And then I was like, okay, I might need this. And then I got online and was like, oh yeah, can we get these photo printer things on the? And they're like, yeah, no problem.
We're just gonna
And
go
we
down
got
to
them, like,
Staples.
4
It's all
days
good.
later, and I was like, this is supposed to be a lot harder than this. This is really awful. that this is
Yeah,
this.
That's a great point.
that's the 2000s. We say that's the 70s. That's the 2000s.
That's a great point. This should be a lot harder than it
This is
actually
a lot
is.
harder. Yeah. I have to explain.
Oh my god.
Well,
Yeah.
there's a moment during all this where we hear audio of Jan. Oh God, this one. She calls home, and we hear her talking to tearful Bob and her hysterical sisters who haven't heard her voice
Oh
in
my jeez.
forever. It is so damn heartbreaking. Oh my God. I just, again, without these tapes, I don't know if you can tell the story with the weight that it deserves, because her sisters cry. Just
Dude, Bob's reaction was
Bob, oh.
Yeah, to me, I hear that and I'm just like,
oh yeah.
oh, I know.
Did you
Yeah.
hear that? You could barely hear it. Did you hear Bob tell Marianne that Jan was on the phone? She was like, I'm outside having a cigarette. I'll be in a minute.
No, I didn't hear that.
No, I'm just making that up. Eventually, the FBI traces a phone booth call that B makes to an all-girls Catholic school in California, and they find Jan enrolled there under the alias of Janice Tobler. B has been visiting her every weekend, and he told the nuns that she was his daughter, and he was a CIA agent. They just snuck out of Lebanon.
You sorry son of a bitch.
So if anybody comes looking for her, they're bad guys. They're looking for me. This guy's got an angle for
God,
everything.
man.
Good grief, this motherfucker. But when she arrives back home, it's not over for Jan. She completely shuts out her family. She's broken beyond measure now. Bob says she's emotionally just gone, because she's still convinced that by her failing her mission, her family's going to suffer the consequences. A few nights later, B contracts some of his fellow inmates to burn down Bob's flower shop. This guy ain't stopping.
Yeah.
But there's, and this is one of Jan's, I thought, strongest, one of her most emotionally open moments on camera, when she talks about as the fans, small town, they rushed down there, as you know, this flower shop meant everything to him. He kind of grabbed his family and was like, you know, I don't give a shit. Everything I care about, I got Jan back. We're right here. And that's one of the few times in the film where Jan kind of loses it emotionally, is this memory of her dad.
Yeah.
Just kind of grabbing his family as they watch that store burn down.
And I think it's a very important scene because it gives weight to what I was kind of feeling already, is that as I watched Jan through these interviews, you don't come out of this with that. I hate saying healthy because I know it's not healthy, but you don't come out of it the way she came out of it, without support. You don't come out of it without love. And regardless of whatever's going on between Marianne and Bob and the family, I never once doubted that they loved their kids at all.
Okay.
Oh, Kate, you look like you did.
Wait, what?
It looks like you did.
Said I kind of had a look of doubt that you said they love their kids.
Yes.
Marianne and Bob.
Yes. Well, maybe not Marianne. Sorry, Skye.
I just, did you see did you see where they were watching the flower shop burn and Bob was holding the kids? Did you see Marianne went over and lit a cigarette in the flames?
No, I totally missed that.
It's in the FBI files. It's in there.
But I'm serious. You don't come out the way.
You know
Jan
what?
did.
I think families are the most interesting and unique. There's no one mold, one set of rules, one set of
right.
Every family is so special and different than the next. I mean, there's literally no two the same, and I think it is very unfair. I'll put this on me. I think it is very unfair. Not unfair. She's putting herself in a film. You're gonna, as an audience member, it is fair for me to have a reaction and this to her.
You're supposed to.
But by no means do I think my reaction and my feelings about her from watching this film are truth. I don't think that I know her soul. I don't think I know her heart. No film can capture that. I get what she gave me. I get what Skye gave me, and I'm aware enough to leave it at that. And the fact that we'll get to this at the end, the fact that Jan is cool with Marianne
means a lot.
What kind of asshole am I to not be?
Yeah.
So we'll touch on that. We're getting there. We're almost to the end of this. Well, not quite. It gets even crazier. Hey, folks! One more brief commercial interruption, courtesy of our friends at Drew Estate. The Herrera Deli Miami is crafted by Level 9 rollers from Cuba at the El Titan de Bronze on Calle Ocho in Little Havana, Miami. The complete Herrera Deli Miami line is expertly crafted with a lavish Ecuadorian Habano Oscuro wrapper over a rich Ecuadorian Sumatran binder with select fillers from the Dominican Republic and Nicaragua. It's only available to Drew Diplomat retailers now in 5 unique vitolas. It's creamy, it's light on spice, it's delicious. Now get on out there and find you one. Do it now. So, they can't peg the arson on B for some reason, or the impersonating a CIA agent charge on B.
B's in jail.
Yeah, I guess the two guys either didn't talk or they just couldn't get the evidence they needed, and I guess the nuns weren't cooperating with the impersonating CIA agent.
I was supposed to say, how does he walk on all of this?
Well, he gets acquitted on both the kidnapping charges, also due to mental illness, and he's released from a mental facility after 6 months. The FBI agent flat out puts the blame here on Jan's parents. If they hadn't dropped the ball initially when they signed those affidavits, they could have convicted this bastard a long time ago. So now we hear some audio from.
Well, that's one thing, and just to clarify, like my wife was just like, at one point, because she was like, I understand that the parents are like, all right, I'm not going to press charges, but at one point, does the FBI and the police say, screw you, we're going to press charges anyway?
They did.
And I was like, well, yeah, but what does it matter when all of a sudden your star witnesses, all your corroborating witnesses don't testify? You have no case.
Yeah, they did the best they could with what they had.
So no, he made a great point. If they would have just followed through, all of this would have been gone.
And there's a great moment, too, that we neglected to point out. I thought it was a really human moment from the FBI agent where he was like, I'm in Idaho away from my family for God knows how long to help your family, and then you do this. Like, he took it personal.
He should. He should.
I can't hear Scott.
Yeah, he definitely took it personally. And, I mean, this was this case really set Pete Welsh off on his entire career. Like, it affected his entire career path. It stuck with him forever.
Ooh, go into that.
He just, it was his first case. He'd come from Los Angeles, actually, and was working, I think, in the homicide division with the police force, and had gotten a job in the FBI. And this was his first case with the FBI. And he had a daughter that was the same age as Jan.
Oh, wow.
And it was huge for him. It was his first experience really dealing with any kind of pedophilia, and I think he really personalized that with his daughter a lot, and threw himself into this case in such a massive way. I mean, literally, he was sleeping on their sofa. He was over there all the time.
Oh, wow.
And so when, and I don't think he quite understood why the Brobergs would sign these affidavits. And when they did that, I think it really did hurt him. It wasn't just this weird thing that people did. I think he felt like it was, I mean, he took it personally, and but was really committed to them, and stayed friends with the Brobergs, actually, for a number of years after everything had kind of, I don't want to say blown over, but had sort of gone beyond the point of...
Well, yeah, you've gone through this very traumatic experience.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, that's really interesting to hear. But you could, without knowing that, you kind of got that just from his delivery and his restrained. He was very restrained and professional in his interview. But
I love this dude.
But you could tell the guy was pissed. And you know what? It was kind of cool too. You know, not to go off on a at all tangent, and I'll veer off in 10 seconds. But you know, with all the shit about, you know, certain political figures shitting on the FBI and whatnot, to see what, you know, actually goes on in the trenches and in these cases and what these guys invest into it. It was kind of I always knew that. I didn't need to see this to know that these guys are doing amazing work that is beyond stuff that we realize. But it was, he was kind of like you couldn't find a more pillar FBI agent that does it for the right reasons. He was great. Okay.
He functions, I mean, from kind of a technical point, he does function as a character that you can kind of hold on to and trust.
Yeah.
Which really becomes important, I think, in this film, that he's the voice of reason.
No,
and,
you're
and even if the documentary kind of, I mean, if the FBI kind of let Jan down, which I think they may have, but he's the voice of reason, and he's the one you can kind of grasp onto.
No, I think you're absolutely right in that sense, that in all of this insanity, he is the rationalization. I mean, he's the one that you can relate to.
Well, him and B's brother.
No, I can't relate to B's brother.
No, but I got the sense that he wasn't bullshitting me.
Well, yeah, he might not have been bullshitting me, but I'm like, dude, fuck you.
What'd he do?
He did what brothers would do.
Oh, you mean, yeah, well, that's true. I mean, he knew his brother was a pedophile, and he gave him a job, and, yeah, okay, you're right, sorry. FBI guy. There you go. So now we hear some audio. Moving on. So now we hear some audio from B, where he's explaining that his therapist determined that due to his traumatic childhood, he went off to live with his stepfather. He claims he was sexually abused as a young man, and the fact that his only purpose as a young man was to look after his younger sister. Well, he took that purpose and that goal with him into adulthood, as far as, I need to look after another little girl, and that's Jan.
Bullshit.
What is bullshit, of course. No arguments there. Meanwhile, Jan goes off to drama camp. She's been back home for a while, and she wants to go to drama camp, I think at BYU.
Yes.
Her parents were hesitant to let her go to drama camp. That you're hesitant about?
I was actually
Family fun park. Sleeping with the guy in your bed 4 nights a week? Man, I don't know about drama camp.
I was actually
That sounds fishy.
I was actually on board with the drama camp. I was just like, all right, she's got to get back to somewhat at normalcy.
Of course.
She's not going there with
couldn't
B.
believe-
She's going there with a bunch of friends.
And her parents have they've seen the light at this point. Like
but Marianne was hesitant.
Yeah.
You're just not going to let it go with
I
Marianne.
want to know more about this Anything Goes production. While at camp and having normal experiences with boys her age and whatnot, she starts to realize that the aliens' mission might kind of be bullshit, because she's doing some things that go against that.
Well, she turned 16.
Not yet. None of the threats are coming true at this point. Tut, when her 16th birthday comes, she's home now,
and goes without any tragic events unfolding. Remember, she had to get pregnant at 16. Her sister's not blind. Her father's not dead. There was a thing where she was off at camp and her mom called that the dogs were sick, and she thought that was her fault because she was not following the mission.
Right.
But the next day when mom calls, all right, you know what? I'm going to give something nice to Marianne. Marianne called her to tell her the dogs were fine, and she's like, oh, shit. Okay, maybe I'm not causing all these things to go through. She's finally able to realize the alien mission isn't real, and she's able to tell her best friend first, then her sisters, and eventually her parents about everything that's been hanging over her head all these years.
I have to stop here. There was one scene in there where she talks about actually going back and killing her sister, to where me and my wife, we were literally just like hand over mouth. Oh my fucking God.
That's how much he's got ingrained into her psyche.
And it was believable from Jan's perspective, to where I'm like, she's wanting to protect her family. This is a girl who's been trying to protect her family for 4 years now. That's her entire operation.
Not just her family. I kind of got the sense it was the weight of the world.
Yes.
This is on a mass scale. This is aliens. She is Jesus, and this is much bigger than her family. I mean, that's how bad. He didn't just bring the thunder on her family. I got the sense that it was full scale annihilation.
There was a point in where I'm like, if this story would have went there, I was just like, oh my God, I can see it going there.
Oh, where Jan hurt one of her siblings. Oh, jeez,
right.
God, Skye, I'm with him. If that went there, I can't go any.
I don't think I could have either.
Was this like the sixth twist?
Just like,
Yeah.
holy shit, man. Fuck you, B.
Then Bob gives the FBI guy a hand job. I'm like,
No.
I just can't.
Settle down,
I can't.
settle
I
down.
can't deal with this.
Settle down.
No, nobody. I'm just teasing. So after her daughter has been inhumanly violated over 200 times, that's factoring in the 2 kidnappings and everything that happened in between, and 28 years have now passed. We're skipping way ahead now. Mom Marianne decides to write a book, Stolen Innocence. I thought it was Blind Innocence. No, Stolen
No,
Innocence. Okay. She and Jan go on a book tour. Jan's now an adult. And there's a book tour and a speaking circuit to tell their story, to help other other kids who've been victimized and kidnapped. Skye, in your opinion, is Marianne an opportunist in any way, shape, or form writing this book? Because, Jan's like, I would talk to my mom, and all of a sudden my mom pulled out a notebook and just started writing it all down. Was there an opportunist angle in here, or was this truly a mother's way of helping her daughter cope with tragedy?
0, 0, 0 opportunist angle.
Okay.
Like, honestly, I believe that 100%.
All right.
It's funny because I never felt that way, and then since the film has come out, I've seen people say, oh, she's just trying to make a butt. And I don't know, maybe it's a combination of, just knowing how much, just how much money isn't made. They self-publish this book.
Yeah.
It's money to get it out there. There was no publisher involved to give them anything. There was 0 opportunistic.
That was certainly the angle that B took. Like, you're just trying to get a movie made. You're doing this.
Yeah.
But you know what? We talk a lot in this movie about human beings and how intricately different they are and how everyone operates according to their own. Here's another cool thing about human beings. I may have had some doubts, that opportunist versus nurturing mother trying to help her daughter thing. The cool thing about humans is we learn to form relationships and friendships, and we trust those people. Skye spent more time with Marianne beyond what we've seen. I trust Skye. Skye's my friend. When Skye says with 100% certainty in her voice that she did this to help Jan and to help get their story out there, boom, I believe you. Okay. That's all I need to hear was Skye say that, and I'm...
But, okay, so here's my question, but you didn't believe it from the film. You thought there was some opportunistic...
I didn't know.
No.
I factored in everything I'd seen from Marianne prior to that, and my perception of her prior to that book getting written, and that led me to question, not to determine, she's an opportunist, but to question whether...
And was this... Okay, so I have another question. So was this before, like, strictly based on the documentary, or from some of the social media stuff that you had seen?
I don't read it. I don't read any of that.
I came into this entirely blind.
I literally haven't read one review. I haven't read one. I'm not on Twitter. I don't... Tut handles our Twitter. I'd never go on Twitter. I haven't read... I try to do everything we do as cold.
It's cold. Okay, interesting. But inkling, like you had an inkling that she was trying to capitalize on this.
Well, that's just our age and our cynicism kicking in there.
No, it wasn't my cynicism kicking in. It was my cynicism kicking in based on what I perceived of her in the last hour and a half. I didn't get the regret.
There was like there, and I will admit there was like a passing moment where the way it was framed, I was just kind of like, did she have this plan? Did she make the decision?
I never thought she started this plan back in the 70s she could write a book.
No, but did she decide to write the book before she got Jane involved, or was it just like, hey, why don't we write a book, and it was collaborative, that kind of thing?
I'll be honest.
There was a split second to where I was like, maybe no, this is a collaboration.
If I sat down,
absolutely.
I'm just saying, if I sat down with anybody and started pouring my heart out about stuff that I'd kept inside from a traumatic experience, and their first instinct was to pull out a pad of paper.
I don't think that's how it went down. I think that's how
it was in the film. She pulled out a pad of paper and started writing this stuff down.
Yeah, but I don't think that it was meant to portray it that way. I think it probably happened like us with this project. We were sitting at a bar having beers, telling stories, and like, you know what? Maybe we should do a podcast. And then it was a collaboration from that moment on. I think that's how it came about, and then it came use as a coping mechanism between daughter and mother.
Well, now I 100% believe that, because that if Skye says that's what it was, that's what it was.
Yeah, it is very interesting though how perceptions are different, because it's. I mean, I completely believe that's how it was, and it was. I think it was really Jan sort of pushing it to happen, saying, "Mom, I don't remember a lot of this stuff." Because I was young and I've pushed a lot of it out, and I need you to help me sort of put the pieces together.
I guess maybe I missed that part in the film where it was Jan pushing for that. That would have gone.
I'm sorry, Skye. You should have been a little bit more heavy-handed when you presented it that way for us.
Ham-fisted.
You need to beat us over the head with it.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Noted. Next time.
All of a sudden, Kate doesn't like esoteric stuff.
Right. Yeah. What the fuck happened? Like, seriously.
Earlier in the podcast, you're like, confusion. I love it.
I took credit for the branch hanging over the RV, but now I don't like riddles. I don't like, I'm a Michael Bruckheimer guy all of a sudden. Okay. B is not taking this book tour lying down, goddammit. He starts doing interviews and spreading flyers wherever they go on these tours, calling bullshit on their claims. He says there was no aliens, they're making all this stuff up. He goes to court to fight a restraining order that Jan's filed against him for stalking. God, I wish that footage was clear. The courtroom video, because it's like, I think it was like 2000.
Yeah, it was like
2005
SD converted,
but it looked like VHS 80. I wanted to as Jan turns to him and you couldn't see really his features.
Right.
I was like, oh my God, I wish that was a clear little moment there.
Okay, let me just give this little argument because
How do you get that
but-
footage?
Oh, this courtroom.
No, this courtroom, yes, it came from the courtroom. But at the very last minute, like we were cutting and then all of a sudden I somehow, I think, got mistakenly CC'd on an email saying something about courtroom footage. I'm like, courtroom footage?
Yes.
Hang on. What courtroom footage? She's like, oh, the restraining order footage. I'm like, I don't have this footage. Can I get this footage? Oh yeah, I'll send it to you. And I was like, I don't know how I got CC'd on this. And I'm like, this is amazing.
Oh,
because Jen told us about this, and I'm like, but seeing her and Birch told, even as fuzzy as it was.
As fuzzy as it was, her confronting him.
Oh my God.
And saying, when he's like, you just want to make a movie, like, no, I just want to make everyone aware of evil in the world like you. As blurry as it was, just like the audio and everything else in this film, the audio is all you need.
I know.
Oh
I know.
my God.
And even, I have to say, even like just the proximity of Jan and Birchtold.
They're right there.
3 feet away.
Here, right? They're like here.
It was crazy.
Like, how can you not have lawyers in between? Like, what? How is this, like, what is happening?
I noticed in this thing, like, the bailiffs are just leaning off against the wall on the side, like, whatever, man, this is...
They've never been around your parents.
You have no idea the monster that's sitting in front of you, which they didn't. But how crazy is that? It took you a freak email to get that.
A freak email. And I was like, can I get this? Yeah, I guess. And I'm like, and we've been saying, give us everything you have. And that's always a challenging thing. But, like, getting that footage to me and the actual kind of face-off, because, like, Jan had told us, how she responded to him in the courtroom, but seeing it,
hearing
and
it.
I think blurry footage may have actually helped it a little bit, It was great. I loved it.
It's one of the top. As visually imperfect as it is, it's so necessary.
And here's the one thing that I will say about its imperfection is that because you can't see it so crystal clear, you can put yourself in that situation. There's that blurriness there to where you can actually interject yourself into that.
Right. Yeah.
Good point. He fights in court the restraining order, as we just kind of summed up. And not only does he fail, they grant her a restraining order for the remainder of his life.
Which is very
rare. Very rare. But, man, they finally...
After all this,
they finally get something right. But that still doesn't stop B. He shows up at a speech she's delivering at a college, and upon arriving... He runs into a group of bikers there.
Oh, I love you, bikers.
No, literally, he runs into a group of bikers. They're there to protect Jan. They're called BACA, the Bikers Against Child Abuse.
I've never heard of this group, but I love you.
Oh yeah, no, they go to courts, court cases all the time. They will literally shield children.
It's kind of like
physically shield them from.
It's kind of like the biker group that used to hang out with Westboro.
Yeah, block funerals, soldiers' funerals. Yeah, these guys are great. He makes some He shows up. He makes some threats, and then he actually runs over one of the bikers and takes off. When the cops stop B, he's got a gun in his possession and is charged immediately with 3 felonies and 2 misdemeanors. Not interested in spending a single day in prison, B swallows a bunch of heart medicine washed down with Kahlua and milk. That's weak sauce. And commits suicide.
Didn't you say that Skye was drinking Kahlua?
It was an
milk
inside
earlier?
joke. She was drinking vodka. He kills himself. Which is one way for that.
And then when you cut to the brother saying all this very matter-of-factly, yeah, he just drank some Kahlua milk and killed himself. It was so surreal. It was just a really weird moment.
And that's the end. The only way the story could end really is with B's death. Turns out he had molested several other girls over the years. Convicted once, served 1 year in prison. Jan emerges truly astoundingly strong and victorious. She says she was able to forgive her parents by helping them forgive themselves, which, as we said, man, she's a much better person than I am. She blames B, the puppet master, for all their mistakes. I might not be able to give them a pass as easily, but she can, so you know what? I'm going to take a step back. And it's like one thing to do, make mistakes when you're calling your own shots. It's another thing to make mistakes when everything you're doing has been predetermined and orchestrated by this psycho. Okay, so Mary and Bob are forgiven. I'm still not letting them babysit my kids anytime soon. Did y'all notice in the final scene, as Mary Ann says she only blames herself, she still threw Bob under the bus? She says, "I'll never forgive myself. I put the blame solely on me. I know Bob feels like he did a lot of stuff too." That's those little jabs there that I
don't think so at all.
I'm Team Bob.
No, break in here, Skye.
I don't think she was doing that at all.
She totally said, I'm quoting, "I'll never forgive myself, and I put the blame solely on me. Solely on me.
Solely on me.
And I know Bob feels like he did a lot of stuff too."
She's acknowledging his feelings. She's not saying he's to blame.
Look, he was a gay florist in the 70s. That shit couldn't have been easy. He did the best he could with what he had available to him at the time. I guess I'm just... I guess that little comment from her, I'm reading different than Skye.
I'm Team Bob too, but I'm definitely not as hardcore anti-Marianne as you.
Well, no, that's changed. Once we addressed the book thing.
Yeah, but it took Skye to tell you that.
That's why I said we're human.
To me, because I see it happening sort of all over social media, just people's responses, and it's very intriguing to me. I can't explain it. I can't make it go away or whatever, but it's
Skye,
Skye, we need to explore this.
But Skye, it's like that with a narrative film. It's like that, you can direct a narrative film and think that your one character is, this is my protagonist, and then you read the reviews and people hate this guy, or a character that you think is hilarious, people on social media and reviews find annoying and completely not funny. In the end, it's a film, and all they're getting is 90 minutes. And
right.
When I shifted gears after Skye told me her impression of Marianne, I'm getting insight that outside of that 90 minutes I was shown from a trusted source. Skye believes her. I believe her.
Yeah, because we have this however many hours we have here, but ultimately what most people are getting are the 90 minutes that they are receiving from Netflix.
Right.
So it's a very and that look, it's great to have this other insight that we have here. But
you're saying, Skye, without me reading reviews and without me being you're saying there's a lot of people out there that are viewing Marianne the same as me?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question. Yes.
Okay, but I mean,
so it's invalid. Not invalid at all.
No,
it's very interesting to me.
Yeah, it should be. You created it,
right? Yes, and I also think it's valid. I mean,
you're responsible for Cade.
Why?
Hey, don't put me on her. Nobody's responsible for Cade.
Don't you put that on her.
Don't you put that on her. I had no idea going into this if that viewpoint was going to be, shared by these guys or shared by you, or I have no idea what's going on with this film other than, just my friend made it and I know it's popular and I want to talk about it, and I think it's really, really good. Yeah. I'm not saying I'm validated by other people
viewing Marianne the same way.
No, I think it's a very.
I would
valid
hope.
argument.
I would hope that, given the unique way we do our show here, Skye, I don't know if you've done anything like this for this film, where you've kind of walked through the film and kind of done an interactive thing like this. Have you? I don't think so.
No, I have not. And this has been incredible because, well, first of all, we have a relationship, which I love, and I know you and I trust you. And and part of what I love about this is this dichotomy that exists between us, but also this likeness of mind, where it's really wonderful to kind of talk about these differences and similarities of the film and our different approaches to it in a very creative, collaborative, and enlightening way. And that I absolutely adore. And those kind of situations where we can discuss things, really important stuff, it doesn't happen very often.
It doesn't, and kind of what we do every 2 weeks is, we get a round table of 3 or 4, and hey, more shows than not, there's disagreements and maybe some flip-flopping of opinions, but we're all kind of stubborn, and we come into a movie with our own, I hated this, but then like all of a sudden, like you're like, you know what, I never thought about it like that, and all right, you won me over there. I think having the filmmaker at the table to be able to, add insight for one, combat criticism with information we didn't get from the film.
I just want to say that I want to put that in a promo because that's the way America should be.
I agree.
It should.
I agree.
If America was one big family fun center.
No.
Oh, no. Sorry.
Well, that wasn't a quick agreement.
No. Everybody agrees we don't want that. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. I think this is a really cool format, especially for a film like this where we're dealing with real human beings and real things. And we have a person here who got way more exposure to these actual people than we got in 90 minutes. I think it was incredibly valuable. I think especially if people who've watched the film and want answers, hopefully we've let Skye provide some insight that maybe wasn't available anywhere else. It was fun. And it was we didn't betray what we do here. We took you through the story.
Yes.
And we just had a lot of help from Skye. It was nice.
Okay, Skye, I have one final question.
Yeah.
I have a few. I got a few finals, but go ahead.
Okay, so you're wrapping up the film, and it gets to the credit rolls.
Yeah.
And you're choosing the music behind that. There's part of me that wanted you to go with Jan singing the Oliver Twist music.
No.
Oh, I wanted that. What was that creepy Christmas song you used in the Christmas Eve when Grace comes over to sign the affidavit? You use this like really like demonic children's. That was.
I'm just saying because there's a point where in the letters he was talking about all you need to do. Remember when you sang that song in Oliver Twist and just sing that for me every day? And I'm like, if you would have used that, oh my God, that would be the most sick thing. Well,
Skye's not sick. She's got a heart and a soul, something you two would know nothing about.
Why am I lumped in with that?
He's
the one over here wanting to hear the creepy music.
Do you think?
Why did I get lumped in with that?
Do you think that Marianne or Bob, when she was going off to drama camp at BYU, could have been like, "You guys aren't performing Oliver Twist, are you?"
You son of a bitch.
All right, so let me just throw this out there. So I had an incredible composer, Carl Dante, and we got into a festival, and I said, "Hey, Carl," and I talked to him. He was collaborating with me 2 years before the film was finished. I said,
as he should.
Can you work on some themes? Can you we worked on themes, and we worked that into the cut. And then we got into a festival and I said, okay, you have to compose the entire score in 2 weeks. And he was like, are you kidding me? I'm like, no.
F you.
And he had a sort of idea about it, but he composed it, and I was like, this is great. I love it. And if I'd had more time, I wouldn't have changed a thing.
No, the score was, I always talk on the show, some of the best scores are like carpet.
It was absolutely texture.
They're there, but if they're good, you don't notice them.
It was absolutely.
And there's only a few times in the film, like that Christmas Eve scene with that creepy little kid singing, that I recognized it.
Yeah.
But it kept it going, and it was a very continuous, had a good flow. It was all very.
It was a great pace throughout the entire project because my wife and I watched it, and we actually paused it way more times so we could actually talk about different scenes. There was never a time to where I looked up and I was like, "Geez, when's this going to end?" We got to be around the third act somewhere. It was so well paced.
It was extremely well paced. Real quick, I reached out to our Facebook. I guess I do social media. I reached out to Facebook today.
He does Facebook.
Told him we were talking, and I asked if they had any questions. So I picked one from Mr. John Bowles. He said, Jan and all the family members, including B's brother, seemed incredibly forthcoming. Was it difficult in any instance to get them to talk? Was there anybody that you...
I mean, I think really the only person that I was personally nervous about was Joe Berchtold. And it wasn't nervous about going to talk to him as it was that he wouldn't talk to us. And I really wanted to get someone from Berchtold's family to give us a...
You had to have somebody.
I mean, it was so important. I think it was so important to just get that perspective. Yeah. But other than that, it was hard. Yeah, it was hard talking to these people, but it was...
Were they offered any kind of compensation or future compensation? Was anybody paid for anything?
No.
Nothing?
No. Really, we didn't pay anybody to be in the documentary. And there's a huge ethical conversation go along with that. I believe that people shouldn't be paid because I believe it could sort of sway them into saying what you want them to say. But I know there's some things out there on social media, which I know, Cage, you don't know about, but...
You're talking about MySpace? Is that
oh my God! These people must have paid a lot of money if they're willing to sort of air their dirty laundry. And I sit there going, I mean, how much money would you have to be paid?
Yeah, no.
How much? I can't even imagine how much money somebody would have to pay me to divulge something far less than this.
Yeah.
I know in my heart of hearts that the only reason Jan and her parents and her family are telling this story so openly is because they want to save lives. They want to get this message out there. There's no other reason to me that they would tell this story than they want to say, look, this could happen to you. We want you to know we did this. We want you to know we understand it can happen to other people, and if we can save a life, we're going to try to do that.
And I really think that there is deep down within us all, while we look at them and we say, how can you do this? How can you do that? How can you not do all this? There's still an aspect deep down to where we realize this can happen, and that's what makes it so really weird.
I hope, in a weird way, I hope that's the case. I don't know that I hope that's exactly the case, but I hope that the film has that slow burn quality where people sort of sit here going, that's super weird, I don't believe this could happen, but that it sticks with them, so that if in the future we get to a point where it's like that's happening to someone, they can go, oh, hang on a second, remember this film and that happened? And I'm sure those parents maybe have this feeling, but I got that feeling, so I'm going to do something to stop this.
No,
And
I think you're spot on with that. Is that there's that whole rejection from the first hand. You're like, this is stupid. There's no way I would ever do this.
right.
And then all of a sudden you find yourself in that situation to where you're like, oh crap, I'm in that situation.
Yeah.
It's like I found out, like, again, I have cats, so I know exactly how this feels.
Right.
Here we go.
I'm a cat and a dog. I know exactly how this feels too.
I learned from friends of mine that, we would have sleepovers all the time when I was growing up. That scene on the trampoline, I've been there.
I know.
I've had that, and then when I find out that people aren't letting their kids sleep over with their friends because of this concern, at first I'm like, well, that's stupid, that's dumb. No, it's not.
Yeah.
This does happen.
I've been referred to with my girls as a helicopter pilot. I guess that's a term.
Helicopter parent.
Helicopter parent.
Yes.
I'm an Apache helicopter parent.
Seek and destroy.
My kids don't play with anybody.
So do you have sleepovers?
No.
Yeah. I just heard recently, it's like, there's no such thing as a sleepover. I'm like, really?
So
like, we had
weird.
sleepovers all the time.
Nope.
Like, that was
I
a
know.
thing. Like, they'll always sleep.
If they ask me why, I just send them a link to your film. There you go.
Thank you, Skye. You single-handedly destroyed.
You've killed the
sleepovers.
American sleepover. You happy now?
I'm happy. That makes me happy. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't. When it comes to my kids, I don't.
But that's like,
Guess what?
that's-
You can go to the media all you want about the hand jobs you gave me. I don't care. I'm gonna go.
That's what makes this whole situation so weird. Is that?
Did I say that out loud?
Yes, you did.
Good thing we're not recording.
Yeah.
No, we're totally recording.
Damn it. My kids come first.
That's what makes
Yeah.
this whole situation.
That's all that
so
matters. The girls. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
You do what you gotta do. And I think in their own twisted way through Skye's beautiful storytelling, we got to see some imperfect human beings come to grips with a very unimaginable. As much as I fault Bob and Marianne, what are the odds that this maniac who could plan out this Venn diagram of, he anticipated every single move. If they go here, I've got a alibi already. If they go here, like, what are the odds in 1974
but there's
that this
people out-
little
but there-
suburban
but there's
family would
people
get
out there.
dropped in the midst of a maniacal,
Well, like I said, I mean,
insane?
he's
Thought of everything. That's it. That's what's the brilliance of this story.
Go ahead,
is
Cody.
not what these guys failed at as parents. Is not what Jan threw. It's that this freak of nature psychopath.
He's not a freak of nature.
no.
Well, no, he's not. There's a lot.
Psychopath. He's
You're right.
Sociopath.
There's a
He
lot of-
clearly had no conscience.
There's a lot of them out there.
I mean,
You're absolutely right.
it's hard to understand because we, like I said, we haven't met June Jones. June Jones got hundreds of people to drink Kool-Aid and kill themselves and kill other people. Manson
Mansfield.
got other
Manson.
people. Thank you, Skye. Shut up. He got other people to kill for him. I mean, there are these people that are that charismatic that can absolutely dominate your life.
Of course,
We haven't met them,
We
but-
grew up 30 miles down the road from
Crash.
Crash.
Pico.
Skye
Right?
and I filmed a scene all about Waco.
Yeah.
I thought it was very haunting, cinematic. It was
And
beautiful.
now there's a home improvement
And
show.
then what?
that-
And Yeah. Why couldn't they have burned them alive? Did I say it out loud?
Yes, you did.
I didn't hear anything.
Chip and Joanna are national treasures.
They are.
I don't know.
Waco thinks they are.
I'd rather hear Koresh plays guitar for 30 minutes than watch that show. Anyway. Okay, well, we answered John Bull's question, and I got two more questions for you, Skye, and then we're going to cut you loose. Coming into this, now granted, this is 5 years ago. You said you've been in this knee-deep for 5 years.
Jeez.
As a podcaster, which I guess I am now.
Yeah, after 2 years.
88 episodes in. Man, true crime podcasts are it. They're all the rage. Now you've got all these serial crime things on Netflix, on Prime, the Ted Bundy stuff. It's like, one, do you have an opinion on why this shit is so popular? Because I don't get it. Like, I watched this because my friend made it. I have no interest in watching.
Oh, my wife loves this.
I have no interest in watching this kind of crime stuff. I tried the other night because I started thinking about this when I was watching it. I was like, you know what like true crime figure am I most kind of interested in? And I was like, well, I thought of Dahmer.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who killed all the male prostitutes and all that.
And there's a new one out on Netflix, Ted Bundy.
But I was like, you know what? I'll try to watch a little bit on Jeffrey Dahmer. I just picked Dahmer out of a raffle. I couldn't watch. It was interview footage. One, Skye, can you put any kind of sense on why true crime is so big right now? And two, did you know 5 years ago that this was a growing kind of genre to where there would be an audience for this?
Yeah. So I just recently, and this is going to sound completely kind of, I don't know what this is going to sound like. I didn't know my film was a true crime film. I thought my film was a film about child abuse. And so that it has gotten such traction in the true crime genre has only recently become apparent to me. And that was when the Toronto True Crime Film Festival contacted me and were like, will you be our opening night film? And I was like, oh, is this a thing? And there were so many people in the audience. I'm like, oh, hang on. Do I have a true crime film? And literally it was very much like was very short-sighted in this regard. But when I started to figure out, oh, maybe this is a Keepers or Jinx or Murder Mountain Now or Ted Bundy tapes or Fire documentary.
I don't even know what those things are you're saying.
These are huge, giant true crime Netflix films.
Okay.
Yeah, way to do your research, Cade.
Is ours one of those?
I don't know what those things are.
I know. And I was like, I guess ours is one of those that people could be interested in. So it was a bit of a revelation to me because I never had really set out to make a true crime film. I'd set out to try to figure out how some guy could infiltrate a family. And it became a true crime film. And that has been, our film has gotten a lot of recognition because of the word of mouth because of this. And I have to say, it's kind of been this lightning in a bottle kind of thing because...
Oh, you got to ride it.
Well, not only that, but I kind of go, okay, so the Ted Bundy tapes is a Netflix documentary. Keepers is a Netflix documentary. Ours is not a Netflix documentary. Netflix bought it.
Yeah, you sold it.
And what's really happening with our film is that people are talking about it. And it's going from this very indie kind of thing that it was 3 women that came together and were committed to making this, that made it, and we've done everything on our own. And somehow, through a lot of work and a lot of very articulated work, but we've got people talking about a film on Netflix that isn't a Netflix film and comparing it to Netflix films that have millions of dollars of
Sure.
budget.
Well,
And that is
remarkable.
awesome. It's remarkable. It's remarkable.
And awesome. But, I mean, you started showing this in festivals in 2017?
Yes, yeah. And none of the big ones. We didn't get into Sundance. We didn't get into Slam Dance. We didn't get into South by Southwest or Cannes or Berlin or Toronto or Tribeca. We didn't get into any of the big ones. We got into the regional festivals who brought us out, and mostly in the southern states, who were really giving us a lot of love and feeling like this was an important film to show. And it was amazing.
I'm sorry. I'm really curious. You said mostly in the southern states. Why that?
I have no idea. Like, it was the festivals that accepted us. If you look at our sort of festival record, it was Mississippi, it was Wichita, Kansas, it was Texas, it was Birmingham, Alabama, it was North Carolina, it was not
Yeah, that's bizarre.
New York, Washington, D.C. We did get into Chicago, but it was not. It was very heavily Southern influenced.
Yeah.
And
I wonder.
that's a very interesting aspect.
I wonder, and this is just me armchair quarterbacking here. I wonder if that's because in the South you have so many pockets of isolated communities that could relate.
I hope that's the case. I mean,
Ideally, that would, in a perfect world,
Right?
that would make sense. I don't know.
Yeah, that there's film festival programmers out there who recognize that, who invite films to address that, and who bring audiences in who appreciate that. I mean, to me, that's what film festivals are all about. And I would much rather be in those film festivals than these big film festivals that are just sort of these Hollywood industry kind of things that are catering to the status quo. So I'm very happy with that. And I'm perceiving that that's the case. I don't know if it is, but I hope it is.
Okay. Well, that kind of leads me into my last question.
Yeah.
How has your experience been with Netflix as a streaming partner? It's been trending for, I guess, a few weeks now, if not more. Everyone's talking about the film, as you said. I mean, are you and your producers going to make some money off of this? Or, because if you're not, as popular as this thing is, if you don't see a nice financial return, I mean, where's the hope out there for making some money,
Yeah.
successfully streaming?
Yeah, I think the hope. Look, we'll make our money back on this one.
What was the budget on this one?
The budget, it depends on how you sort of figure it. So if it's hard money in, we were at 100.
Okay.
If it's worth, I kind of value it at 500 because I worked for free. Like, I haven't gotten paid. I've put in all this money myself. I've financed it. So it's a little bit hard to, hard money in what it's worth. Who knows? Like, I value myself not super high, but like
Sure.
what I would expect to gain from any other job I'm working.
Yeah.
So we'll break even and make a little bit. We're not going to get rich on it. The hope is that it will bring enough eyeballs, I guess, to kind of garner some sort of path forward and to make the next film. I'm not sure how that's going to. I don't know if it's with somebody sort of paying us to do everything, or whether it's just an opportunity where somebody finances something that I have complete creative control over. So that's what's going to be interesting from this point on.
I just wonder that, and you kind of gave me carte blanche to
to ask, and I'm always
Yeah.
curious about that. So, you know, if you're valuing this thing at $500,000 and you're going to break even off the Netflix deal, then that's
We
good.
don't quite break even off the Netflix deal on that, but we come close.
That's good.
It's good.
That's
It's
not.
a home run as far as I'm concerned. I mean,
Oh, hell yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
How did you guys raise your money?
I financed a lot. One of the other producers, Stephanie, put in some money, and then we did Kickstarter campaigns, and we had one where we really put a lot of effort into it and raised enough money to finish post.
Okay.
And I think we raised $25,000 on that Kickstarter campaign.
Okay. So editing, music, got all that taken care of, and people got paid.
Yeah.
Okay.
People.
Well, the fact that you are trending on Netflix and making money from Netflix, that makes me feel better about Netflix.
I have a I have a quick question.
I say that because we had a filmmaker on the show last year, a very popular 80s horror genre filmmaker who released all of his earlier stuff to Amazon Prime, and he flat out told us his monthly revenues couldn't buy his kid a Happy Meal at McDonald's.
Right.
And now Amazon's going back and getting rid of a lot of those low budget. They're kind of weeding them out.
Boo
Indeed. So at least it kind of makes me feel a little bit better when I see a movie trending on Netflix that they're actually giving some money to the filmmakers. That makes me happy.
I have a quick question, and maybe this is a softball question, and maybe it's not, but given your background with narrative, and feel free to say, Jason, you don't know me, why make this film?
I mean, for me, honestly, I've worked in both scripted and non-scripted, and every time, I mean, Cade, just put your fingers in your ears at this point. Thank you. Every single documentary I've worked on has changed my life. It's opened me up to some other world. I can't say that for every scripted film I've worked on. And so for me, documentary has become has been both creatively challenging and personally challenging. And so I've decided to do that, and this one was one where I felt like I had the opportunity to change the world.
As an editor who takes a whole bunch of raw consumables in and shapes it, to what fits the story or the narrative, one of the things that I love and I loathe documentaries, because documentaries in the hands of competence can be very changing. It can affect change. But at the same time, it's still a person's narrative on the truth, to where, you can take, Michael Moore is actually brilliant at it. He can take a scene, and what you see on his film in the documentary might not be contextually accurate as to what transpired in that moment. What do you say in terms of any type of criticism to where, you're a documentary, you're trying to get to the truth of things, and what do you tell people that was like, well, this documentary is just fake news, this is just, her trying to put her narrative on this thing?
Yeah.
Has anybody said that? Has anybody accused you of...
Is it just me?
Has anybody accused you of an agenda other than Tut?
I didn't accuse anybody.
No, but I don't see that happening in this case.
No, I actually think it can. I mean, I think there's certain people who can come out and sort of talk about ethical issues should this documentary have ever been made. I think there are certain people who can feel like I should have taken a bigger stand against the parents who feel like I could have taken a bigger stand against
I felt
the
like she
woman.
just looked at me when she said that.
She did.
You just stared at me, Skye.
I didn't. I looked towards this direction.
No, you were staring at me.
But I think there's, everybody's going to come to this and bring certain opinions, and I think that's great. I think you should come to this film and bring your opinions into it. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we were faced with all of those different choices, and my editor and I sort of batted those back and forth, and ultimately I sort of got to the point where I was like, we need to go in this direction and cut this out because we can't quite fit it all in.
Sure.
And this is the film that we made, and I do feel like there were certain things that we did in this film that are maybe more subtle, that I'm hoping will sort of have this slow burn kind of effect. There are other things that I feel like are a little bit sort of hard hitting. There's some other things that I feel like could potentially be viewed as manipulative, which doesn't bother me in a huge way.
It shouldn't. That the manipulative thing shouldn't bother you at all. These are their words that you're working with. That's
right.
That's
Right.
not on you. I will
Right.
say this to your question, Tut, and I don't watch a lot of documentaries. I don't watch Michael Moore documentaries. What I can tell you is for a guy who doesn't watch documentaries, one of my top 5 films of all time is a documentary. It's American Movie.
Oh, American Movie.
And much like Skye's film here, it is the right filmmaker finding the right subject matter it's a lightning bolt. It's a once in a lifetime thing where a filmmaker finds the right subject matter and digs deep and exposes you to a community, a culture, a family that you would never in a million years be exposed to. And for whatever reason, that story relates to you in a personal way, whether it's in Skye's film as a parent, whether it's in American Movie as a filmmaker, you will live with that. And, that's a movie I watch on a yearly basis. I used to watch on a monthly basis. The fact that Chris Moore, the director of, I believe it's Chris Moore, the director of American Movie, found this Wisconsin filmmaker struggling to make his next movie. It was the perfect storm, and he made the perfect documentary that also encompassed it didn't matter if your dream was to be a filmmaker. It didn't matter if your dream. This guy encompassed everybody with a crazy dream, but if you were a filmmaker, you fell in love with this story. And I think Skye captured lightning in a bottle here with this story as you don't have to be a parent. You just have to be a cognizant human being. That's why her range is so much greater than American Movie. You just have to be interested in the human experience to just gravitate towards this bizarre, insane story. And she did it. And I think she did it wonderfully. I'm so proud of you, Skye. I just, I probably won't watch another documentary for 10 years. What? Unless you make another one. I'm done. I'm done with these. We'll do a 80s TNA flick next week, and everything will be back to normal. But
there's something.
You did your part to inject a little bit of culture in the Tuesday Night Cigar Club, and we're better for it. Cody, you're better for it.
You're right.
I know.
Well, I appreciate you guys entertaining me and taking such good care of me and delving in deep.
Entertain you. Thanks for entertaining us.
Yeah.
To come on and to dissect your film and to take Tut's heated questions. I think we threw a bunch of softballs, but Tut, you were in there.
Yeah.
By the way, if you ever need an assistant editor.
Oh, jeez. Here he comes with the... He works cheap. I can vouch for that. He works cheap.
I work for Cade. Yes, I do.
But no, you know what? I would love to do more of this. I would love to have filmmakers on the show to, let us do our process of going through it scene by scene and have that input.
I was about to say, you've given us such a great gift tonight, and just with your access and being forthcoming with all of our questions.
Skye rocks. I told you that before we started. She's awesome. And you're never going to do this again, are you, Skye?
Only we'll do this again.
Next time I'll tell you what beer we're drinking. You can stock up.
Yes. So I can load up, and so I can be tipping it back with you.
Yes. Boys, real quick before we cut Skye loose, cigar, 3 thumbs up.
3 thumbs up. Very.
Tasty.
Yes.
Good
Very.
flavors.
And for that price point,
Good flavors. That
amazing.
price point was amazing. The beer,
As always.
Unibroue don't fail.
I haven't quite figured out how I feel about it.
It's just like all the other Unibroue.
You've had
beers.
1.
Oh, wait, I love it.
I was supposed to say,
I
look
love
at
it.
those things.
4, 5.
I know. I just
6.
figured it out. I really like it. You know what? They kind of categorized it as a red ale, bordering on a red ale. I don't get a red ale out of this at all.
There's a
This,
little bit
this
of
is a
creaminess.
double.
this is a strong brew.
Well, strong ale, yes.
Yeah, this is strong. This is strong
Double.
ale. There's no red. I don't like red ales. Boy, it kept up with the cigar, and man, really, really tasty. And I think we are all thumbs up on Abducted in Plain Sight. Available to everyone right now on Netflix.
Netflix.
Man, that's 2 Netflix exclusive movies we've done in a row. Look at us.
Oh my God, we're relevant in 2019.
We're out of the 80s and 90s. We're actually talking about movies that are made. Yeah, how about that?
Just wait till next time when we go into the 1970s classic.
Skye, have you seen The Package on Netflix?
No.
That's what we did last episode. It's about a bunch.
Oh, what?
It's about a bunch of teenagers. They go in the woods, and one of them lops his wang off, and the whole movie they're trying to get his wiener back to
The hospital.
It's
the hospital.
Oh, it sounds incredible. It sounds very similar.
it is
I
on
love the fact
so many levels.
this guy's like, I just made a documentary trying to expose pedophilia in America, and you guys are talking about the package.
Lopping off wieners. This is why.
That is
This
Tuesday
is
Night
why
Cigar
we're
Club.
having problems.
This is why Skye and I's friendship has worked over the years. She tolerates me.
That's the way a lot of your friendships work. They tolerate you.
Yeah, well, what are you gonna do? Okay, everybody, send us some links.
All right, so if you're on YouTube, join us at TuesdayNightCigarClub.com. See our website, same address, TuesdayNightCigarClub.com. Go to our Instagram, TNCC_podcast. You can join us on Twitter at TNCCcast. And then if you're going to buy some cigars, guess what? Go to TuesdayNightCigarClub.com, hit the famous smoke banner, and then enter your promo code TNCC20, and you'll get...
What if they want $20 off $100?
Yeah, that's almost like 20%.
What about if they want to buy something off Amazon for their
Oh,
loved
if you
ones?
wanted to buy someone off of... Excuse me, let me get into my sexy
Valentine's
voice.
Day is coming up.
Valentine's Day is coming
Do you
up.
want me to do
and if
this in
you
my
want-
Adrian Barbeau voice?
Yeah, go ahead.
Lovers, if you're buying something for your lovers on Valentine's Day, go to Amazon.com. No. Go to TuesdayNightCigarClub.com, baby. Click on the Amazon banner and then order your lingerie or your whatever guys want on Amazon. And do it through the TNCC banner, baby. It's all good.
Skye, can I get a commentary on his Adrian Barbeau?
Dude, she doesn't know who he... That was the great thing about working with Skye. Whenever I would throw her a horror reference or like, this is going to be like The Fog, or she had no idea what I was talking about. And it was beautiful.
I had no idea the horror movie references you were talking about. That's so insulting.
You said that in our behind-the-scenes documentary. This guy was giving me so many references, I had no idea what these guys were talking about.
Because they were completely obscure references. It's not like The Fog. I mean, come on.
Skye, would you like to give our listeners what's your Twitter?
Oh, it's Skye Borgman. Everything is Skye Borgman. The film is Abducted Doc on all the twits and the swits and the instas and all those. It's all
The
the
MySpace.
Go join
Oh,
Tom
nice.
on her MySpace.
Don't join B on MySpace.
Don't join B.
Don't you join B on MySpace. That's bad news. Bad news. All
I
right.
just heard her say, "Oh my God."
I love this woman. All right. Well, thank you so much, Skye.
It's been so awesome.
I hope I told Tut on our last break, you know, as a creative person, I would like nothing more than to some random strangers digging into my creative works and questioning me and calling me out and asking me for. I hope it was fun.
I love it. I love it. I love having really open conversations like that. I mean, we're not strangers, so that's a different.
No, that helps. I think there's a level of comfort here that helps. But I mean, it is different than a Q&A at a film festival or
Absolutely
an internet thing. I mean, we literally just went through the whole damn film and asked you any question we had. That's invaluable. If you like this film and you want to know more, I don't know what else we can do for you.
And I love the hard questions. It's great. I love it.
I love the fact that you were open to them.
No, thanks. Yeah. I think it's the only way to be. So, yeah.
All right, boys and gal, should we send this thing out?
Yes.
All right. Well, as I say on the end of every episode, let the wings of liberty never lose a feather. Sayonara, motherfuckers.
To learn more about the time I was abducted, not once, not twice, but 3 times by my horny middle-aged smoking hot neighbor Chesty Summers, at least I think her name was Chesty Summers. It's really foggy. Anywho, please visit my brand spankin' new YouPorn channel. Oh wait, Tut said I couldn't cross-promote that particular side venture on here. Spanking. Well, in the meantime, to learn more about the cigars and libations enjoyed on tonight's episode, you can visit Netflix.com, PunchCigars.com, and Unibroue.com.
For more on O'Brien's Irish Pub, the live music leader in Central Texas, please visit o'brienstemple.com and download their free smartphone app, where you'll find full beer listings including over 40 on tap, menu information, and a calendar of upcoming live events. To listen and purchase music heard on tonight's program, check out www.fritzbeermusic.com. Thank you for listening to the Tuesday Night Cigar Club podcast. This is Keith A. Howell saying until next time, friends, unless we see you sooner at the pub. So keep it smoky, and for God's sake, keep it ballsy as well.